Welcome, friends, colleagues, metal enthusiasts of all walks of life. It's good to have you back for our 80th Heavy Metallurgy. Excuse me. 80th episode of Heavy Metallurgy. Sorry about that.
Timing.
Timing. Perfect. 80 Fridays, Alan. Kind of amazing.
That's a lot of Fridays. Yeah.
It's a lot of Fridays. The old 100 is coming on quick. What are we going to do for 100?
I don't know. Eat ketchup and potato chips.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, that's true. Don't want to do reruns for a big even number like that. Eat raw dolphin. I don't know.
Apparently
I'm hungry. I didn't take enough lunch with me to work today, so I'm still kind of catching up a little bit on the sustenance.
Well, we've got a pretty awesome show planned for you guys today. Before we bring out our guest, just wanted to throw out a little not a sneak, but a little heads up that the next Heavy Metallurgy T-shirt is almost done being drawn by our amazing artist, who is Justin Bowling from Vestabon's Blood Box. Seen a couple sketches, and it's looking pretty cool. So hopefully here in another week or so, we're going to have some new merch, some new swag for you guys to check out, hopefully dig. And then of course we got more stuff planned for the future there as well. So before we bring out our guest, everything's good with you, Alan? Is there anything you want to bring up before we jump into
guest? Actually, there is something. A new book got released this week, just to let folks know about. I know some of you already do because we've talked about it. But Bazillion Points has just put out Denim and Leather, the rise and fall of the new wave of British heavy metal. Now, my understanding is this was pressed a year or two ago in the UK, and then Bazillion Points, I guess, is licensing it, but they also added a lot of material. I think they gave it like a pretty heavy editing and worked in some extra stuff. It's by Michael Hahn. I recognize the name, but I'm not too familiar with his stuff. I think some folks in the chat know more about him than I do. I've just started reading it. Can't say much about it yet. It's very much set up with, lots of interview clips from, different people who were on the scene at the time. In the first chapter or two, they're talking a lot with like Joe Elliott, Steve Zodiac, Neil Kay, folks like that. Most of the interviews were original interviews conducted for this book around 2020. But there are some interviews that are recycled from older publications, but they do a good job of indicating which interviews, are older ones and which are not. And also making sure they cited, sources for where those older interviews came from. So if folks are interested in the scene, hey, maybe you need to figure out something to ask grandma for the upcoming holiday. You can tell her you want a book, and she might appreciate that. And here you go. It was... rats. How much? I think it was $29.95. So actually not a bad price. Nice thick paperback, and should have some interesting perspectives on the new wave of British heavy metal. So thought I would give that a shout out. Again, haven't read it very much, so can't really speak to how good it is yet. But we'll get to that over the next couple of weeks when time allows.
The topic is certainly in your wheelhouse for sure.
Yep, looking forward to checking it out.
Right. Well, cool. Yep, everybody get on that. And we're going to bring out our guest here. He is a constant guest here on Heavy Metallurgy. We love having him. Matt from the Dark Path. Welcome back, friend, sir, kind sir, drinking his wine like a sophisticated gentleman that he is. Love it.
Satan.
How have you been? Satan, exactly.
Satan. Delicious. Delicious.
Have you
How
back,
you guys
Matt?
doing? Thanks for having me back on, boys.
Oh,
thank
it's
you.
Fun to have you. You're definitely one of our, quote unquote regulars, and it's always a good time when you're around. How's things been going?
Let's see how many of your subscribers I can run off this time.
They're tough. They can take it. And that is another thing. Hello to everybody this evening. Good to have you. Good to see everyone. See some new faces in here too, which is kind of cool. Good to see everybody. Before we get super started, Matt, Matt was the one that chose the topic this week, and what are we talking about? There's some people that seem to be wondering in the chat what's going on. So what are we talking about?
So I thought it would be fun to talk about metal bands that, don't stick to just meat and potatoes, bands that, kind of mix it up a little bit, play around with a lot of different genres, that have a lot of different tools in their toolbox and aren't afraid to play with them. There's nothing wrong with bands that are meat and potatoes, that you know exactly what they're going to do every single time they put out a record. I love a lot of bands like that, but ever since I got into metal, I've been more drawn to the weirdos, the bands that do a lot of weird stuff and pull sounds from places that you wouldn't think go in the world of metal, so to speak. So I thought it was kind of a wide topic that would make all three of us pull out a pretty big range of stuff to talk about. I thought it would create a lot of discussion with the people in the chat. A lot of arguments are probably going to take place, and I just thought it would be fun. So, yes, bands that became disco, bands that are, jazz infused doom slam, whatever. I just thought it would be an interesting thing to touch on. You've got plenty of Amon Amarths and Motorheads and such out there, Cannibal Corpse and what have you. Let's talk about the weirdos for a little bit, bands that step outside of that sandbox every now and again. So that was my topic. I think viewers of the Dark Path kind of saw this coming. So
Yeah.
It felt like a very Matt topic, but yeah, a very cool topic as well. Like you said, there's plenty of bands that just kind of find their lane and stick to it, and you know exactly what they're going to sound like, and those are a lot of fun sometimes. But sometimes you're in the mood for something that's a little different, and I think it kind of helps these types of bands maybe feel a little more unique. They get a little bit more of their own identity. And they're a little harder to pigeonhole, so they are more fun to debate and argue about. Is this a black metal band? No, they're a death metal band. No, fuck you, they're a death doom band. And you can't just put them in one category quite so easily because of the way they blend and mix their different influences. So definitely a Matt topic if ever there was one, but it should be a very fun one to go through.
And I want to clarify, like, I don't mean like specifically weird bands, like, band X that I'll show soon enough, I'm sure. Just any band that mixes it up a little bit, I thought would be fun for us all to pull for. So,
yeah. Definitely, it was good to, even though there's some stuff on here that I've shown a lot on the channel, it was kind of fun to exercise the brain and think about that. I struggled a bit, though, I will admit. I wasn't as easy as I thought, but we shall see how it all comes out here. But we might as well start with you, sir, since you are the esteemed guest. Let's get this ball rolling, because I think we both have some stuff to show.
So,
yep, 5,000 subscribers. He's going to be listening to the whole thing. It'll be a reaction video, a live reaction.
Need I say more? Should I just leave now? So
that doesn't mix styles. That just mixes, a good band with a big pile of crap.
So this does mix styles. You've got a few songs from Halloween on here that are really good Halloween songs, but then there's a lot of stuff in here that's straight out of Michael Kisk's AOR Butthole and other weirdo pop stuff, a little bit of jazz, just
some big band
over the place. Some big band, yeah. Like this is just a really weird album that I know I like it. I know you hate it, Alan, but that's why I bring it out every single episode of Heavy Metallurgy that I'm on, because I
would have been disappointed if you didn't.
At this point, you have to have it, and I want this to be a tattoo on your body at some point. That would make me very, very happy. But yeah, Chameleon by Halloween. This is kind of a joke poll, but it fits with the topic. So
totally does.
This is a record that's just so all over the map, and I don't even think the band knows what they were trying to do here. It's 3 or 4 different solo records crammed into one. So
that's kind of a good way to describe it. Seriously, that it's everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and if nothing else, to be fair and nice to it, Halloween's a band that is relatively easy to pigeonhole overall. You know what you're getting with most Halloween albums. that one is the exception. That that is their weird experimental album. If you wanted to be sort of kind about it in the description,
it has held up a little bit better for me than I thought it would. Like I said, the last time I was gone to Minnesota, I spun it and I didn't hate it. And I can't wait for Alan's little playthrough of it on 5,000 subs and him go, wow, that was pretty awesome. I can't wait for that moment. I can't wait.
You might be waiting a while for that moment, but yes, if for folks
It's one of those records you got to be in the right mind frame for. You got to be in the mood for randomness, and that record is random as hell. So
that mind frame is somebody holding a gun to your head saying, enjoy this, or I'm going to murder your family.
I mean, that's taking it pretty far, I think, but
that's what hey, when you take that bus, you get there. Think
okay. Here we go. Alan is up.
All right, I want to start in a very different place because this is one I've played off and on for the past several months, and I haven't really figured out which shelf I even want to put it on yet. So it definitely seemed to fit the category. It's 1914, where Fear and Weapons meet. And, Ukrainian band. Marty, you sent this to me. Thank you very much.
You bet.
And it was funny because, it was literally in my cart online, and I just hadn't got around to actually placing the order, and then it showed up from you. So, that worked out really well. Cool album, concept album. The band, very World War One. Lots of deep dives on that stuff. And they have, a really strange but cool blend of there's death metal elements. There's a lot of doom metal pacing and atmosphere. There's parts that feel more blackened. And all three are really, really swirled together. It's not like, oh, this is the black metal song and this is the slow song for the doomy stuff. Or it's not like it's just, black metal vocals over death metal beats or something. It's really, really eclectic way of mixing those styles together. I like it. I think, the album's probably a tad long. By the time you get to the end of it, you feel like you've slogged halfway across France, through a bunch of trenches. But overall, definitely like it. I think it's, a neat project that they've got going on. And I can't really pin down where, when I'm done with this, which shelf am I going to put it on? Do I put it on the death metal shelf or the black metal shelf? I don't know. Chat, help me out here. Where do I shelve 1914? What do you guys think?
I can give you some advice on this.
Okay, absolutely. Please do.
Put all the metal into one alphabetized section as opposed to having a death, a doom, a black. Because there's so much shit that's cross-pollinating. It's hard to. Do you have to have another shelf for? Can't classify it like 1914?
I don't know. I used to do that, for a long time. Yes, I just had, one big alphabetized list. But, as things sprawled out over more and more shelves, it kind of became more and more awkward. And a big thing for me is a lot of times I'm in the mood to listen to certain styles, but I don't necessarily have a certain album in mind. So it's like, I want to listen to some power metal. And I like being able to go and be like, okay, here, I'm looking at these 6 shelves. I don't have to scan through all 28 shelves looking for power metal, doom metal, black metal, death metal, hair metal, hair metal, hair metal, hair metal. Man, I got too much hair metal. Oh, there's a power metal album. Maybe I don't want to hear that one though. So I do split it up into shelves. But you're right, Marty, that it does cause problems sometimes. And 1914 is a great example of that. I honestly don't know which shelf I'm going to put this on, but that's kind of the point of the bands we're talking about tonight.
All right. For me,
Marty, you show one. I'm going to see what the chat is recommending I do with this 1914 CD while you take the lead.
All right. Well, for me, it was this is the first band I pulled for this because I've been listening to the new album a lot. Probably my favorite album so far that's been going for a while on 20 Bucks Spin, Black Magnet. I got Hallucination. What the fuck is the name? The stickers over it. How do I solve this? Come on. Hallucination Scene and their new album, Body Prophecy. Very much a I don't know if I would call this an industrial band with a lot of metal influence or a metal band with a ton of industrial influence. It's kind of it's a one-man project. The guy walks the line quite perfectly between both of them, and there's this thing. I mean, metal guys that mess with like noise or industrial, you can kind of tell it's not their first genre of choice. It's always kind of good, but not like something like Skinny Puppy or Frontline Assembly, where these guys, they came up in the electronic field. They just have a different way of approaching industrial, but this is surprisingly good. If he's a metal guy going into industrial, this is surprisingly quite adept. It's really well layered. The songs are hard hitting, interesting. The guitars are mixed in just right. It's more or less an industrial feel, really pulsing and violent sounding. It's really cool. And I really like this cover. The color scheme is a little weird, but it's just a cool fucked up image. I don't know. I like it. This is good stuff, man. $20 spin. They're stretching out a little bit into other genres, which good for them, because you can't, rely on brutal old school kickback death metal forever, I guess. And this is a pretty interesting project. If you're into industrial music, check this stuff out. It's a good mix between metal and industrial. Have you heard them yet, Matt?
I have not. I've seen you talk about them a couple of times, but haven't taken the plunge yet.
Especially, I think this one might be a little better, but the new one's really good too. It's Eric Bauer turned me on to these guys, and he completely right. It's awesome. Good stuff. Oops. Re-sleeving on camera. Matt, you're back. Not yet. Damn it. All obsessed with putting this in the sleeve. Okay.
All right. Next one I got is some low-hanging fruit, but I don't really see that many people talk about Incipit Satan by Gorgoroth that often.
Yeah.
This was a record that I've always loved this album. It's one of my favorite by Gorgoroth. But this is one where they started to bring in a little bit of industrial into a couple of the songs. There's a little bit of goth on here. It's a very odd album that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in the Gorgoroth discography. And, it's got a love song on here, When Love Rages Wild in My Heart, as ridiculous as that song is. I love it, But this is just a really weird record for Gorgoroth, and man, does this thing need a repress. This hasn't been repressed since it came out. Trying to find a legit copy of this is impossible.
Really?
I still have my promo copy from 2000, back when I did a fanzine back in the day, and I've never been able to get a better copy of it since then. So if anyone has one and they want to get rid of it, hook me up. But I love this record. I think it's a really interesting record. It's definitely a product of the time. I mean, 99, 2000 is kind of where a lot of black metal bands went really weird with it, and this is a shining example of one of those bands that were dipping their toes into those other waters, but they didn't go, full blownsies with it like the Covenant did, or Avant-garde, or Troll, or any of those kind of bands. These guys, this is still very much a black metal record, but it's got a lot of other weird sounds to it that are outside of the sphere of typical Norwegian satanic black metal and what have you. And if anyone is interested, I know Radical Research, they dedicated an entire episode to this record, and it's a fantastic episode. They can say more about this record than I possibly could. So any fans of Radical Research that haven't heard that episode, go and check it out. They put a nice little spin on this record, and I think they kind of conceptualize it more than I could ever possibly say. Everyone knows I love industrial and goth and weirdo stuff, so this is a great album for me personally. I can see why some people don't like it, but I think it's one of their best. So, Incipit Satan, Gorgoroth.
Right on.
I didn't know that had gotten hard to find. Interesting.
Right, either.
Yeah, if you go to Discogs or eBay, like copies are going for like $25, $35, $55. It's ridiculous. So.
Jeez.
Yeah,
It might be going to.
It's Nuclear Blast. It's Nuclear Blast, and they never repressed stuff, so that's why.
Okay. I might be going to Grand Rapids next week. They have a huge used section. I'll keep an eye peeled for that one in particular for you. Alan.
All right. Well, I started in kind of the weird black doomy, deathy stuff, and I want to stay there for at least a minute. This, again, like Matt said, I think this one's also pretty low-hanging fruit, and we've talked about this band on many occasions, but they fit the bill here perfectly. Ruins of Bevrast. And I picked Foulest Seaman to show because this is the album that really got me into the band. It took a few tries. I'll be very honest. The first couple of times I listened to this, I really didn't know what to make of it, and it didn't really stick. But I kept hearing people talk about the band, and I knew it was, sort of a challenging listen. So I'm like, well, let me give it a couple more tries. And so that, like about, the third attempt, it finally did stick really good. They did change their sound, some after the first couple of albums, and it's a little bit similar. It's not that they sound like 1914, but they're mixing those same kind of elements. It's got, a very oppressively heavy, dark atmosphere. There's dark elements. There's, some, blackened parts. And the whole thing just has, this overall sense, of, doom about it. And it's all just swirled together in a really, really nice balance. The guy is obviously very talented and does a lot of things well when it comes to songwriting, instrumentation. But I think one of the real strengths of the band is just how well he balances those different styles and mixes them together, which I think is something that threw people off on the last album where he had worked in a completely different influence that kind of took people by surprise on, what was it, Thulian Chronicles. But yeah, this is another one. I don't know what shelf to put it on. I literally right now have half the CDs on the death metal shelf and half of them on the black metal shelf.
So you've split up the band's catalog between shelves? That's like Jason Hook level bullshit. I'm sorry.
No, I know exactly which ones are where and why. The earlier ones I have on the black metal shelf because they're a little more shrill and shrieky to me, and these starting with this one, they get a little darker, a little fuller, a little more bottom heavy, and so these I put over on the death shelf. But
I'm actually angry right now. Thanks.
I hate doing that with bands, but there are a couple of bands I do it with just because the albums are very dissimilar to each other. And again, if I'm in the mood to listen to a certain style, I may not want this one, but I might want Rain Upon the Impure. So if I put them together, I don't see Rain Upon the Impure when I'm looking for that style. But this one seemed like another sort of perfect match for this particular topic. Ruins of Bevrast, great project, but very, very interesting blend of styles there.
Okay.
We'll let Marty have a moment to get his blood pressure back under control.
I'm just pretending you didn't say that was. Anyway, I'm going to kind of stick in the electronic metal field here for a minute. With Skin Chamber, 2 albums, Trial and Wound. Wound is the debut. This is a Boston 2-piece project with Paul Lemos and Chris Moriarty from the industrial band Controlled Bleeding, which is really interesting band. There's some straight up old style industrial sounds, and then there's some straight up noise albums. They're a band project that experimented a lot, and this is their soiree into the metal world a little bit. This album is a bit plotting and kind of boring. It's really kind of hard to listen to. It's abrasive. There's got a lot of noise elements to it. This album, they started to get the metal vibe figured out a little bit more. Still very abusive to the listener. Like I said, there's a lot of noise elements to it, which it's kind of where they, the industrial noise thing is kind of where they came from. But this isn't stuff I'm grabbing for a lot, but I just recently picked them both up on CD, replacing tapes. So, I mean, I guess it's something that I felt was, because I actually prefer Controlled Bleeding over this, but I felt there was enough worth here that I needed to check it out for sure. But if you're not familiar with this, it's pretty interesting combination of metal, noise, and industrial from the dudes in Controlled Bleeding. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
those albums are painful, man.
Yeah, especially
They're
Wound.
painful.
Wound is tough, man. It's a tough slog for sure.
Yeah, you sent me your cassette of Wound, and I remember I listened to that. And I was just like, "Oh my god, I have a headache," but it was awesome. So
yeah, that's why I upgraded, because I'm like, God, it's not something I'm like, playing air guitar to on the couch in the basement, but it's it's still worth having. Matt, you're up.
So how did I not have a sip of my wine when I showed this record? I mean, how did that not happen? So
You're still
I'm
stymied.
gonna
You're
fix
still
that.
stymied from the Allen's insanity, his Dewey Decimal System insanity he's got going on over there.
I can't even comment on that. Oh my god, it's ridiculous. So moving on, let's go to another realm of ridiculousness. Opera meets metal. I mean, we got to show some theory on here, right?
Yep.
Sure.
So this is a record that I didn't really know what I thought of it the first time I heard it, but it came out around the time that I think Metallica had done the S&M thing, and I hadn't really heard any other bands that were mixing like big band orchestra operatic kind of stuff in the underground metal world. And Therion had done that with the album before this one, Vovin, I believe it's called, but I always liked Digiol, however you say it. I always liked this one better, and that's why I picked this one out to show. But opera and metal, who would have thought? Those of us who love King Diamond, we should have known that already, but these guys do it in a completely different way, in a much more like real opera kind of a way than it is on my opera shelf. It's right next to my middle finger that goes in your face, Simon. So
that's in the file in the bathroom next to the toilet paper rolls.
Yes, that's exactly
on the
right.
opera shelf by the toilet paper rolls.
It's on the opera shelf next to Opera 9, Fatal Opera, and Candle Opera.
Yeah. There you go.
I
mean, clearly nobody here likes Therion, but I always liked this album. I thought it was cool, but this is really my exit point with this band too. I think they got a little carried away with it after this one, but this one is still pretty heavy. It's got some good stuff on here. And it kind of feels like a real opera. Like you go to an opera house and hear this album, and Vovin as well. And then after that, I don't really care. But had to throw a little love to Therion and their operatic silliness.
Yeah, no, I agree, Matt. That's about the point I lost interest in Therion too. After that, they started churning out albums faster and faster, and they all felt kind of the same for a while.
Exactly the same. Same.
Yeah. I almost pulled Theli.
I did too. That was the first one I pulled out was Theli, but I decided to go for this one because this was where they went like true blue with it. But they do a cover of O Fortuna on here, and I always loved that song. And Therion's version of O Fortuna, I thought, added some heaviness to an already epically heavy song. So
that's right. I forgot they had that cover on there.
Yeah,
haven't heard that one for a long time. Cool.
A bit more of Darkness and Beyond Sanctorum fan.
Well, yeah, you should be. Most people are, but I like some of this era too. Just that's about it.
What was it? The one with the Egyptian thing? Was it Vovin? No.
Vovin's the more class one. Lepaka Cliffoff?
No, Theli maybe.
Secret of the Runes.
Theli has the Anubis looking critter.
Yeah, I remember getting that as a promo, and that went in the garbage. That was terrible. Not what I was hoping for. So they let me down.
That's a weird record. That's a weird record.
All right, Alan. That was a good pull, though, Matt. Good one. Nailed it.
Yep. All right. Let's go with this one. A band that does kind of a very unique sound. Winter. I just pulled the EP instead of the album because we show the album a lot, so I don't get to take the old Slimline EP off the shelf as much. But Winter, on first listen, sounds like okay, that's a doom band, and then it's like, that's a strange doom band.
It's a crust band.
And yeah, Eric Bauer, describes it. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of like, a crust band playing extremely slow, kind of at doom metal speed. And it's like, that makes a lot of sense. I had never thought of it that way. But yeah, it's got the doomy atmosphere and the pacings, but yeah, it's got the heavier vocals and just the very distorted kind of sound to it. Very cool band, always kind of a unique band. One of the members, has a follow-up project now that's very, very similar to the Winter material. So there's finally something that sounds a lot like Winter if folks want to follow up on it.
What's the name of that? Godin? Is that
Godin? Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Their album came out, I think, in 2020. It's very similar to this material. The only the knock against it is they have these annoying little interludes between every song. So there's like 9 songs, but it's got 18 tracks, and it just didn't need the interlude tracks. They just kind of get in the way and break up the flow of the album too much. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, this is one of those bands that definitely was underappreciated at the time. I've said it on other episodes, but you could find Into Darkness on every Relapse sale list for years. Just like $5 a piece. Please buy a copy of this CD. We can't get them out of here. Nobody would touch that album. And now, of course, it's kind of revealed as one of those lost classics of I would say of the genre, but of what genre? They had their own identity because of the way they mixed things together. Very cool band. Liked them. I think I'm up to 3 copies of Into Darkness sitting around here. So that's a thing. They're all on the same shelf, though.
Well, you've got 3. You can mix it up a little bit.
I could, but I don't think I need to. I can keep those with the doom metal stuff and feel pretty good about it.
Okay.
All right, Marty, what you got next?
Well, another band working with a bit of a crust element. I love the first 3 Pitch Shifter albums. This is Industrial. This is their opening album. These guys did Godflesh better than Godflesh. I love this shit. I love the vocals. I love the crust feel. I love the plotting, unapologetic drum machine. It's just heavy as fuck, really well written, and just crusty, nasty sounding. Looking for this on vinyl, people. I don't want to pay a ton of money and have it shipped from overseas. So if anybody has a record of this and they want to sell it, hit this guy up. And in the same vein, this is a California band, Depressor. This is a Filth and Grace, I think, demos compiled on one record. And then Depressor, self-titled full length. This is the last album where they sounded like this. It's very much in the Pitch Shifter vein. Plotting, super heavy, a little bit of a crust involved, Godflesh, bit of an English feel because of the Pitch Shifter influence. It's really solid stuff. Got the microscopic parasite or bugs. It's a thing for the style of music for sure. But I love this stuff. I think they both of these bands, they took the Godflesh aesthetic and made it a bit more listenable, and they did so by offering more variety. I think Godflesh was a little too focused on 1 or 2 riffs per song. I mean, I love some Godflesh. I love the debut, and I love Selfless quite a bit. I even like Street Cleaner a lot too. That's a good mix of styles. I was going to pull that for tonight, but I wanted to pull Pitch Shifter instead. But good band. Check it out. If you're not a Pitch Shifter fan, definitely check out Industrial. Check out the EP Submit, which is killer. And then their second full length, Desensitized, is a little more polished, but good. After that album, they went shit real bad. Really bad.
So you don't like the www.pitchshifter.com album?
I do not.
Not one you can tolerate?
Not I can't get down with that.
It's awful. Yeah,
it's so bad.
It's garbage. But yeah, I love those first 3 Pitch Shifters. Excellent.
So good. Anyway, Matt, you're up.
All right. This one I can thank Ben Smasher for introducing me to this band, Balsagoth Battle Magic. This album is bonkers. It's a good album. Bonkers. It is bonkers. It is a living, breathing Conan the Barbarian comic book in space. It is power metal, symphonic metal, black metal, a little bit of death metal. Like, you would not think power metal, symphonic metal, and the darker stuff would go together, but holy Lord, does this album hit all the marks. It slaps all the dicks. This album just rules. It just rules, man. I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, look at this picture on the back. Look at them. Look at them. They are awesome. Look at this guy. Yeah. Yeah. We know what's up. So good stuff right here.
So it's like black metal, power metal, epic battle metal all mixed together. It's really cool. That's good shit.
It's just a great record. And you know, I like all the Balsagoth albums, really. I mean, they're all solid, but this is the one I always recommend people to start with because their first two just don't go as bananas as this one gets. This one is just insane. And then after this, they kind of get more like spoken word style, like he's reading a story to you while all this cosmic battle stuff is going on behind you, but it kind of loses the oomph to it that this one has. So great record all around, all day, every day. I recommend Battle Magic. And I don't know how hard or easy this one is to get. It was one of the earlier Cacophonous bands. And I don't know if you know anything about Cacophonous, but the guy who ran that label kind of disappeared for a really long time. And then he came back, did one repress of a few albums, and then disappeared again. So, I mean, good luck finding this. There's a couple of different versions of this out there. You're probably going to have to pay for it, but it is well worth it if you want the physical copy. So either this version or the repress that came out a few years back. But solid stuff. Battle Magic.
Good one.
As
good
Jason
pick.
Hook would say, get into it.
Or what he would say, yeah. Long ago. Anyway.
That's a fun pick. I haven't listened to Balsagoth in years. The first one I heard was Starfire Burning upon the ice-filled throne of Ultima Thule, which
is also awesome.
Which is awesome and just tells you everything you need to know about what the band is. And just as long, and lo, so they gathered in the darkness on the plains of Hyperborea, and they waited there for 10,000 years. And they just have all this crazy instrumentation in the background, and he just keeps talking like this in a slow, menacing voice that is very British somehow.
and that's like what all of the latter stuff was like too, like the Power Cosmic and everything from there on. It was just like rote reading of a story that he told, and then like those are so great albums, but it just doesn't have the fun, like comic booky kind of adventure role-playing kind of a thing that Battle Magic has.
And now for chapter 6, Enid Williams, bass and vocalist from a girls' school. John Peel's support was crucial. This was very early on. I'll stop there.
Indeed.
Nailed it.
So where would you what shelf would Balsagoth go on in your collection?
Inquiring minds want to know.
I don't know. I don't have any physical copies of Balsagoth anymore.
Good
I've
thing.
got MP3s, but the MP3s are divided up into different folders by genre too.
Really?
I don't remember where I put them. I just type search Balsagoth and find them that way if I need them.
You're a sick little monkey. So sick.
I am a sick little monkey. And I guess it's a sick little monkey's turn to show something.
It is. Your turn to shine.
Gotta show this one. One of my all-time favorite bands, Misfits. Misfits never quite sounded like anybody because they had this very odd mix of things going on. They were considered part of the hardcore movement and, are usually put there. But let's face it, they don't sound like any other hardcore band on earth ever did, especially not, in the late 70s and early 80s when these bands were working. Yes, you've got, the very, punk, infused music. But you've got, these strong senses of melody always worked in. The songs are catchy. It's not just, testosterone and anger. And it's, these are songs that you immediately get stuck in your head. They're meant to be chanted and sung along to. And it's also got all this old, classic 50s and early 60s rock and roll music, rolled into it somehow as well. Part of that being, Glenn's voice, where he's just got, this weird Elvis meets Jim Morrison thing going on. But, the structures of the songs, they were built on those same pop structures that people would have used, back in the days of Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and stuff. And then you put, this weird sci-fi, layer on top of it all. And it's, nothing ever quite, was similar to Misfits. They had their own weird identity because they weren't afraid to take these different pieces and smash them together. Whereas, some hardcore bands had, their own sound, but, a lot of them, it was just, bang out a song in 30 seconds and then bang out another very similar song in 30 seconds. Misfits songs aren't very long either. Most of them are 90 seconds or less, but every one feels a little bit different and a little bit unique. And the fact that they could, play with these different styles and influences were a big part of that. It's why they're one of my favorite bands. They have a reasonable body of work from back in the day. It was, of course, spread out over 1 million different singles and EPs and stuff, but they had a reasonable body of work and a lot of cool stuff there with these different styles always showcased.
Okay,
I'm done.
All right. Next up, this is a band that went through quite a humongous transformation, and it was for the better, in my opinion. And I'm talking of the Netherlands, The Gathering. This is a Mandy Lion album, the first album that features Anneke van Gersling. I can't remember her last name exactly, but she's an amazing singer. Basically, The Gathering were a doom death band, kind of murky, okay, nothing great. And then with this, they mixed, more of an upbeat commercial feel with her angelic vocals. Gone are the death growls, and this is very much very ethereal vocal style. Like, I don't want to say singer-songwriter style, because that's not exactly right, but she's got a very alternative, or I don't want to say pop. Pop isn't the right word. More of a commercial approach to singing over this stuff. But her vocals have such a charm to them, such a sweetness and a charm. Nighttime Birds is also great. How to Measure a Planet is my favorite of the bunch. And there was other albums that went on after that before she ended up going solo. But this was her first album with The Gathering, a band reaching for, Century Media during this era was really starting to find some commercial success with some of their bands. And this was a band they kind of groomed into that wave as well. And to a very great success. It absolutely stunning. I love her voice. And I'm pretty picky when it comes to the lady singers for some reason, but she just always, and saw them live once and it was enchanting. Absolutely great. I love The Gathering with her singing. Very good stuff. Good, more of a commercial mix of styles with metal for sure. All right. And you're back.
I'm pretty confident you probably have this in your stack as well, Marty, but we'll get it out of the way. This album's been brought up a few times here and there. Grand Declaration of War by Mayhem.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
In my stack.
Yeah, again, the year 2000, weird time for black metal, man. Really weird time for it. And this record, I hated it at the time. I thought
Me too.
It was garbage. But the more I listened to it, there was just something to it that brought me back to it more and more. And it's one of my favorite Mayhem records.
Me too. Yeah.
Especially when you listen to it in conjunction with Wolf's Lair Abyss, because Wolf's Lair Abyss gives you what you want, what you expect, but it kind of fades out. And then this album picks right up where that EP fades out, this fades in, and it just continues the journey. It's part 2 and part 3, whereas Wolf's Lair Abyss is part 1. Great record, though. I get it when people don't like it because it has all that weirdo industrial Marshall noise, whatever you want to call
industrial,
it.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think it's a sound that I really wish that this band had played around with a lot more because, I think the reaction to this record, it was expected, but man, I think they should have. instead of going back the other way and doing an album like Chimera, you know, I really wish they had done more with this weirdo style. So I like it a lot. And I also really like the remastered version of this that came out a couple years back, where they
haven't heard it yet.
They fixed a lot of the production issues on this record, quote unquote fixed. They changed everything on it except for Maniac's vocals. Maniac was adamant that you do not touch my vocals. They sound exactly how they're supposed to on that record. You leave that shit alone. But they brought the bass up. They fixed the tinny kind of drum sound a little bit. The remastered version of this feels a lot meatier. But when I go to listen to this record, I like the original, you know, because it has that colder, more sterile kind of Marshall noise industrial feeling to it. Whereas the newer version, it fits a lot more in the discography, but whereas this one is kind of a sore thumb, but I like the sore thumb. So this is the version I still come back to more so than the newer one. But they're both good. They're both good for different reasons. But yeah, man, I mean, Grand Declaration of War, great record. Great record. And I'm actually really surprised. I'm really surprised that Simon from Explosive Action likes this record.
I'm a little surprised too, to be honest.
I wouldn't think Simon would love this record, but he says it rules. I'm happy with that because he's correct.
Happy with that. Yep.
He is correct. So.
Yeah. Their next really powerful album for me was Ordo Ad Chaos. I really like the experimentation and weirdness of that record.
I like that one a lot too. I mean, they really don't have an album I don't like, but
I don't like Death Crush all that much.
I like Death Crush. It's fine, but no, there's just something about Grand Declaration. It stands completely apart from the rest of their albums because of all that weirdness that's on it. And I think it's one of their strongest.
Yeah, no, it's a cool album. It's one, a lot of people had trouble getting into it. For whatever reason, it clicked with me very early. After I got it when it came out, and after a couple of spins, I found it really, really interesting. But like you said, Matt, I understand why a lot of people didn't. I think it does really showcase, at that time, Mayhem was still really at the leading edge of black metal. They were going to help define new directions for it. They weren't going to just rehash De Mysteries Don Sathanas over and over.
It seems sorry to interrupt you, Alan, but it seems like it's a lot more accepted today than it was at the time. I find it a little bit surprising because when you look at 1999 and 2000, there were so many black metal bands that were playing around with electronics, Mayhem was not the only one, and there's a lot of those records that have always been revered from that time period. But I guess just because it was Mayhem, that it just freaked people out. But I'm happy that people have come around on that record. Like a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, Grand Declaration, great record. They say that today, but they certainly weren't saying that in the year 2000. So.
No, they weren't. Ordo and Chaos, is a very cool one too. Yeah,
that's a weird record. That record has really weird production, very
really murky and muddy. But I dig it.
Yeah. It sounds like it was recorded in a mud puddle, but it is fantastic record.
Yeah. So it's got a very thick, gauzy kind of production to it.
All right, Alan.
All right. This one always makes me think of bands that successfully pulled off a mixing in of some new elements to their style. It's Amorphous. They obviously were doing pretty good, sticking to a little more of a straightforward death metal feel before this, but starting with Tales from the Thousand Lakes, they started bringing in a little bit of 70s atmospheres here and there. Not super proggy or anything. It was still worked quite well. It was easily accessible, not too off the wall. And of course, after this, they went much harder in that direction on Elegy, and a few albums after that. They were having lineup shifts and going into almost more of much lighter power metal direction almost. But right around this time, they had a very neat sound. By this time, getting into the mid 90s, I was getting very tired of a lot of death metal. It was just absolutely everywhere, especially locally where I was at. All you could hear, was, 6 Feet Under, Cannibal Corpse, Malevolent Creation, followed by more 6 Feet Under, Cannibal Corpse, Malevolent Creation. And, to hear a band, that was still, obviously very heavy, very, death influenced, but taking it in a, different direction, bringing in a very different influence and, something that it wasn't just focused on, gore, brutality, how brutal and how sick can we be. It was really a breath of fresh air around that time. So yeah, this was an album I latched onto when it came out and has always been kind of a favorite. It's not perfect. It has its shortcomings, but in terms of bringing a new stylistic element into death metal, it was very, very well executed.
Sorry, typing. Okay.
It's all good.
Next up for me. Well, let's go here. These guys, the name says it all, and they're so good. So good. Lord Weird Sluffeg. This is Twilight of the Idols.
I pulled that one. Damn it.
Down Among the Dead Men, and pretty much all of them. I mean, what's the combination here? Traditional metal with a Thin Lizzy. A little bit of Thin Lizzy in here. I hear a lot of, the dueling harmonies, a weird, quirky Irish twist in their lighthearted riffs. Shit is so good, man. This and Traveler, Atavism, they're just so good at writing these earworm riffs, man. They just stick in your brain. Keep you coming back for more. This guy's vocals, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's a psych professor or philosophy professor in California somewhere, I guess. But totally unique.
Or San Francisco.
San Francisco.
San Francisco now. Yeah.
Completely unique style. I mean, these guys are just they are a slave to the riff, and they produce some monsters. These early albums are fantastic, and even their later albums are really, really good. They've maintained their sound through the whole time and their weirdness. And for a while, they dropped the Lord Weird part, and they just went as Sluffeg, but same band. They're not a whole lot of changes, but yep. I listen to this and I hear a lot of Thin Lizzy, which is fine with me. Very cool stuff. Love it.
I just saw them live a few weeks ago. They were here.
So lucky.
They were here in San Diego playing a heavy metal swap meet thing. And
cool.
It was one of the weirdest concerts I've ever seen in my life, because they played at 3:30 in the afternoon outside, and I was standing pretty close to the stage, which was a mistake because it just sounded like everybody was playing a completely different song all at the same time. So I had to kind of back up a little bit, and then I could kind of understand what they were doing. And they were so weird. They were such a weird band live, but it was great though. It was great.
Lucky.
Yeah,
Swap
fantastic
meet, hunting for records and listening to killer bands play. Oh my God, what a deal.
Yeah, it was awesome. And Gene Hoglan played a solo set where it was just him on stage playing drums to a backing track of like a greatest hits of bands that he played with. I'm not going to comment on what that was like, but yes, that was the San Diego heavy metal swap meet from a few weeks ago.
Huh.
So got to see Slowfeg though, which was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. You're up.
So I'm going to show, I've got a couple of things that I want to show here. I'm going to show these together just to show them really quick, because I've got a couple people here asking about them. But first one, this one's for Aaron. I had pulled out some Killing Joke for this, because this is a band that has never really stayed in one genre for too long. And I would say starting with this album, moving forward, they started to be kind of a metal band, but I don't know if I'd ever really call them metal. This was the one and only album that they put out through Noise Records, which is pretty awesome. But this is a band that just transcends genres. I mean, they started off as like post-punk, and then they went to, not synthwave, but that 80s synth pop kind of stuff, and then kind of noisy, and then they went, a little bit heavier, a little bit more metal. played some stuff with Dave Grohl. I mean, just every record this band does is totally different. They really fit the bill for a band that blends styles, because you've got a Killing Joke album that you could recommend to anybody depending on what they listen to. So if you're a metalhead and you've never checked out Killing Joke, this is the one you want to start with. Extremities, Dirt, and Various Repressed Emotions. This is where I would send you. And for Ben, yes, I did pull out a little Pensie's Nocturnes. This is Douche Fang, as I like to call it. And this is a band that mixes vaudevillian circus music with black metal. You know, you wouldn't think that those go very well together, but this is another one I can thank Ben for turning me on to. This is just not for everybody. Not for everybody, no. This band. This is definitely an acquired taste, but I find that this album right here, especially, it sounds like a nightmare. This is very terrifying to listen to, because it starts off with, you know, the sounds of chickens crowing around, and then just all this weird circusy shit starts happening. And then you've got this guy wearing a clown nose that's just screaming at you while this really strange French black metal stuff is going on. Holy crap, this is weird. And definitely not for everybody. But there you go, friends of mine in the YouTuberverse. These are for you guys. This is where cool. This is where you should all go for whatever strikes your fancy.
Right on. Ellen.
All right, so switch. I haven't shown any power metal yet, and looking over the power metal shows, sometimes it's a little harder to find bands there that step outside the lines, especially with more recent bands. A lot of them do kind of stick to their lane, but you know, bands have mixed things, and a band we've talked about quite a bit was known for that. You know, Blind Guardian shifted styles right around this album and started to work in a lot more of, you know, the symphonic elements, kind of like, you know, in a way, similar to what Therian did that you talked about earlier, Matt. And, you know, this one came out, what, around 92, which not many power metal bands were doing that at the time. There were a couple of others that were really starting to move in that, you know, slightly more symphonic direction. But it wasn't the norm at the time because, well, you know, nobody in the U.S. was playing it, period. And a lot of European bands, you know, the bigger names like Running Wild and Rage were still, you know, sticking to, you know, pretty standard, you know, traditional German heavy metal stuff. But, you know, then you had bands like Stratovarius starting to pop up that were, you know, doing things a little different. And, you know, Blind Guardian was definitely, I think, I don't know if it's ever been confirmed, but it seems like they were definitely going to kind of pick up where Halloween had started to go on Keeper of the Seven Keys and work it, you know, in more and more from this point forward. Halloween obviously wasn't going to do it by this point. They, you know, had been bogged down for years in lawsuits, and when they came back, they didn't have the same vibe whatsoever on Pink Bubbles Go Ape. There were hints of the old magic, but not a lot of it. So the door was open for another band to kind of pick up that idea and start to develop it more fully. Like, what if we took really fast, speedy German metal, but yeah, made it very big and grandiose and worked in this, you know, orchestral vibe to it. And it obviously worked out very, very well for them. They've been doing it for 30 so years now, and are one of the most popular bands in that style. So good for Blind Guardian for realizing that they didn't have to just keep making, you know, speed metal albums, you know, their whole career. They were great at the speed metal albums. They could have done that, and a lot of fans would have been happy. But they worked in another element, and obviously went on to bigger and better things overall.
And can we all agree that their new album is fantastic?
Yep,
we can agree that it's pretty okay. It gets let's see. It gets the this kind of thumbs up. It's always with my sons, like, how you doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down. It's like, this. It gets these slightly thumbs up.
It is a thumbs up record. What is wrong with your ears, sir? Oh, so good.
My ears are too good, and I can tell that every song sounds way too similar to one another, with only one or two exceptions. They just the songs are patterned too similar. They just are.
What version of the record did you get, man? Jesus.
The one that's over on the Death Doom shelf.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was going to say, what if that's not set on the same shelf as the other ones? Yeah, Aaron's got a message for you up here on the screen.
Sorry, talking too much.
Apparently, he's struggling finding that. This is the impression I'm getting, but
No,
okay.
Manimal says the night off. I showed Misfits, so don't need to go with Manimals.
Well, Matt kind of hinted at this a little bit, not knowing it all, but Michael Kiska, of course, he had a musical world life outside of Halloween, and I don't know how to say this exact. I think it's this Place Vendome. I got into this stuff thinking this was going to be just him returning to power metal, super triumphant and awesome. And there are elements of that here. This is him and some of the guys from Pink Cream 69 and Costas, the guy that ended up being the manager for Halloween. And it's like a very incestuous crew there in the German scene. But this is, a metal influence, but with a big AOR influence, which is adult-oriented rock or arena-oriented rock, however you want to put it. I went hog wild. I heard he was in this band. I spent a night hunting this shit down, buying it on eBay and Discogs. I think I'm missing one, but I don't think I'm going to investigate it because these hit really fucking soft. It's a really, Kiska sounds great. He sounds great, but the songs just are kind of like wallpaper with him singing over the top. You know what I mean? Kind of the soft hits. It'd be if there was like a power metal soft hits version channel on Spotify, which there probably is. I think there would be some Place or Place Vendome playing on it.
How did they compare to the Instant Clarity solo album that he did? Because
I like
what you're describing is how that record sounds to me. So
I really like that Instant Clarity record. There was some of that, but there was also some power metal stuff on there too. But this what they ended up doing with Unisonic, even the debut Unisonic is kind of in this vein a little bit.
Yeah, but Unisonic's awesome though.
But Unisonic, that album really grew on me, and of course after they went full on power metal, back to their roots, type of thing. But this stuff here, traditional European metal mixed with AOR. I'm keeping them because it's got Kiska. Every time I say I'm going to try that again, I pull it out and listen to it. I'm just halfway through a CD. I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's just too soft rock for me. But yeah, exactly. Rocket Rod. They're not bad, but Unisonic is heaps better. I can't get rid of the CDs because they're not garbage, but it's just a little too light for me, I guess. And Matt is back.
All right. So this is a band that I don't think a lot of people really know about. So whatever. But Soliloquium Contemplations. This is the glare is going to be really bad on this one.
Is it Soliloquium?
Soliloquium.
Whatever.
Soliloquium.
I'm pretty sure it's soliloquium. Because soliloquy is a word, and soliloquy is in that, right?
Yes. So
you can't spell soliloquium without soliloquy.
That is correct. So this is a band that kind of mixes not quite funeral doom, but doom metal with kind of a shoegazy kind of a sound. It's a very interesting type of doom metal that I've never really heard another band explore. Shoegaze is a love it or hate it kind of a genre. I really don't dip my toes in that genre very often, but this album, and they've got another record that's really good too, but this is really good stuff. It's a perfect kind of record for driving around at night, like around a city. I get the same kind of vibes from this as I do from something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, like Ulver's Perdition City. They're nighttime driving through the city kind of records. But this one is more on the metal doom side with a little bit of a dreamy atmosphere to it. So it's really good stuff. I think if anybody, likes their doom metal but wants to try some doom metal that's a little bit more ethereal, a little bit dreamier, a little bit more spacey, Soliloquium is right up your alley. So wanted to give some love to these guys.
All right. There's some people that are familiar in the chat. That's cool.
Good.
Alan.
All right. Here's a favorite that I haven't pulled off the shelf in a long time, but yeah, made a big splash about it's probably been 20 years or so ago now. While Heaven Wept. They changed sounds a lot after the first release. Kind of dropped, the death metal, growlier, heavier stuff, and yeah, especially on this album, it was kind of the big breakthrough for them. Vast Oceans, Lacrimose. You've got, a good traditional metal framework. You've got, very epic parts strapped on top of it. It's got, this layer of kind of, a sadness to it. It's not the, kind of dark, doomy aura. It's, more of a wistful, longing kind of a slightly, sad vibe, but still, with kind of, a bright, uplifting sound at the same time. They're always a little hard to describe around this time. A lot of people, I think, shortcutted and just kind of said, oh, it's kind of like Fate's Warning. And that's fair, but they don't sound a ton like, Fate's Warning. And by Fate's Warning, people meant, Arch era, the first, 3 albums, but especially, Spectre Within and Awaken the Guardian. Yeah, they're in the same zip code maybe, but I don't think they live on the same block. But they did this style very, very well for a couple of albums. And it was kind of a shame that the band, after 2 or 3 albums, they got onto a bigger label, but they seemed to like pick up extra band members every single time an album came out. And you almost got the sense that maybe the project just collapsed under its own weight. It's kind of hard to keep everybody on the same page. The last album was a bit of a disappointment, but for a couple of albums here, they had, a really cool sound and style that nobody else was doing, especially at that time. Maybe taking old Fate's Warning, but working in these other different sounds to it to give it its own identity. Really cool stuff. Really, really good album from, right around the turn of the century. This one, on the old heavy metal forums at that time, like Metal Maniacs and Lapland, this album, people just could not stop raving about it. And now it's an album that nobody really talks about. And I think
I've never heard it. I don't think I've heard
Really?
any of their stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think some people got a little bored with the band over the subsequent releases, and so that by the time they went away, a lot of people were thinking, fine, whatever, good riddance. But yeah, this one and the one that came before this are real gems. Even the one that came after this, I think it's Fear of Infinity, was still very, very good in this style. I got to see them play live once in Georgia, and they sounded really good live. Got to chat with Tom Phillips just a little bit. Really, really nice guy, very personable. But yeah, it's a shame this one doesn't still get a lot of praise. I think it's been sitting on people's shelves a little too long, and it's time to take it out, dust it off, and give it a little more love, because it is one of the really great albums from early in the 21st century.
All right.
All right, Marty, over to you, sir.
For me, this band was a bit groundbreaking for the fact that Skyclad, Wayward Sons of Mother Earth, this is the debut Skyclad album. The album that Martin Walkier came up with after Sabbath folded, or he left Sabbath. That they put one album out without him. I think there's a couple members of Sabbath in this band as well. Yeah, it's basically pagan thrash with a fiddle player, and it's kind of in the old UK pub jig type of feel. What was her name? Georgie, was that her name? The violinist. But yep,
don't remember.
Very good thrash metal on noise with fiddle. And it's kind of like the precursor to what My Dying Bride would do. They would take this aesthetic, of course, add it to the doom vibe that they had going on, but it seems like they were of the same mindset in the same area as well, same country. But yep, I always thought this band was pretty exceptional. As they went on, some of their albums started to get a little boring, but they had a pretty good run. There was a solid run with Martin singing that were fun. He's quite the wordsmith, putting all the weird little lyrical twists and common phrases and stuff like that. But excellent stuff with the fiddle. Very good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, Skyclad really helped launch the whole folk metal thing.
Yep.
They were a huge influence in that direction. And you're right, you know, they were fun for a while. It did feel like after a few albums, they put out their albums very quickly. There was, you know, almost one a year there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a while, you know, and this is coming from me, I realize, but the puns, the constant barrage of puns in the songs and album titles, after a while, you kind of got, it's like, okay, yuck, yuck, yuck.
Folkymon.
Yeah, it was kind of, you know, the
So
absolute
awful.
nadir of I think everyone knew at that point this band just had to go away.
Yeah, we're going down the wrong road here.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, for a while there, yeah, they were very fun and unique. I think they ran it into the ground a little too much, a little too fast. But yeah, everything else you said, absolutely correct.
All right, Matt.
So we're an hour and 10 minutes in, and nobody has brought up Anathema yet. So I got to bring up Anathema.
You get to bring up Anathema.
I'm going to be the one to do it. So this was a band that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with a lot of their records. I really love the early Doom, Peaceville 3 kind of stuff. And I really like this era of the band too, where they're basically trying to be kind of like Pink Floyd, I guess.
Yep.
And then after this, it's kind of hit or miss for me with what they were doing. But this is a band that, despite all of their genre changes, they've always been a very dark and depressing kind of a band, even when their music sounds not metal at all. Like there's still a sadness to what they do. But I find this record right here, especially when they're, you know, they've pretty much shed all of the doom out of their sound, but they still have a lot of that same emotion to it. They've replaced it with kind of a trippier, more relaxed kind of a Pink Floyd vibe, but it's still dark, and I still really liked it. You know, this is a great record, and I really like the one before this too, Alternative 4. I think that one is probably depending on my mood, I might like that one a little bit more, but nothing touches the early stuff. But it's a completely different band at that point. You know, might as well just be two different bands with the same band name that shares the same members, but you know, they're hard to link together. I shudder to think where Alan splits this band on his shelves. You know, this is a band that makes it difficult because
yes,
they're just one of those bands that have changed it up so much over time. You know, yeah, their Doom stuff is great. We all know that. Everybody loves those records, but everything that they did after those first couple, it's real hit or miss with the fan base, what they like. And it's very rare when you find people that still really like their last couple of records just as much as their early stuff, you know. And I'm definitely not one of them. There's records I definitely like more than others, but I think this is a good era for this band. It's a nice exit point in a way, and you kind of get that sense with that album cover too. Like it's leaving one plane of existence and going to the next, and you really get that feeling here. So great record. Lot of emotion in this band from day one to their last day. I don't think they're around. I don't think they're around anymore. I think they broke up or they're on hiatus or something, but I mean, it's all very emotional music, all good stuff.
They announced during the pandemic that they were done since there just was no way to make money. But I think there have been rumblings that they were going to reactivate in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure about that. But
Huh.
Yeah, really good description, Matt. And yeah, I mean, a band they didn't just mix styles. I mean, they completely changed styles over time too. Going from the gothic death doom and peaceful 3 to becoming kind of a post rock band.
Post-rock band, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're very good at that.
They've got an album that's got a lot of electronics on it. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Natural Disaster, maybe? I don't know, but they've got one. They've got one that has a lot of it ramped up the electronic aspects of it. Not nearly as bad as certain other bands of the early Peaceville era, but yeah, they definitely change it up quite a bit. And y'all know there's going to be a band I'm going to show coming up soon that does something very similar. You all know it's coming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you savor that moment, but in the meantime, suck that anathema, people.
The last thing I heard by them was A Fine Day to Exit, and I was shocked.
That's a great record.
I was shocked at how much Beatles influences on it, but I end up really loving it. It's really catchy and sad.
That is definitely their Beatles record.
Yeah,
I never really thought of it like that, but yeah,
it's just a lot of piano, a lot of playful stuff going on, but dark and sad, and I don't know, good stuff. Good band.
Yeah,
like I said, they're awesome live. I've seen them a couple times. They were great.
Yeah, but you're right too, man.
I saw them at Maryland, not
Milwaukee,
Maryland, Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Me too.
Yep. That was the first time I met you, long before we ever knew each other, and you were a total dick to me, but that's okay. I was a dick back then.
I was not a dick.
I was a young dumb punk, and you're like, I write for Worm Gear. It's my own shit. You can go away, Mr. Kid.
That is not true.
That's exactly what he did, everybody. Don't listen to him.
Not true.
He was a total dick. He was a total dick. But,
deceiver.
But do you remember their set at that show? Remember
they played Comfortably Numb, I remember, by Pink Floyd.
I've got that set on a bootleg.
The singer was like freaking out over the lighting because the lighting was like right in his face, and he kept like going like this throughout the whole set. And then he was yelling at the sound guy because the sound guy couldn't get his guitar right, and after a while he just said fuck it, and then they just kept playing anyway, and we were all like, yeah, just deal with it, man. It's like a bad sound man at a concert, never heard of that before.
Sorry you're not in Europe where they do everything right. Here it's like, whatever. Yeah
That was a good show though.
It was good.
I want to say that was around this era, wasn't it?
I believe it was for that album, actually.
Yeah, it was for this album, 2000. So
sounds about right. Yep. I forget who it was. Somebody recorded that and sent me the show because I didn't go that year.
There's a lot of footage from that Milwaukee show that's on YouTube.
Makes sense.
A lot of shows around there. That was Opeth's first appearance.
I was there for that too. Yep,
that was a great show. I've got a bootleg of that. Yep,
Catatonia.
Yep, that was a good one.
And the monitors weren't working, and so Jonas sounded terrible, off key, not good. Yep. And I remember Enslaved played to a room of like 30 people. I was in there for that too. Yep,
I was there. Yep.
Yeah, I was ignoring. I was ignoring you the whole time. Look at that fucking dick over there. Yeah,
look at that bald asshole over there.
Well, hey, Metal Fest is coming back. Jamie Jasta bought all the rights to it, so we'll see what he can do with it.
I heard about that. Yeah, we'll see. Good luck.
Good luck, Alan.
All right, got plenty here, but. Let's go with this one next. Controversial album by the band, but personally, I really like it a bit. Pestilence, Testimony of the Ancients.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of thrash metal on here for a band that had already established themselves as a death metal band. Lots of death metal on here for a band that has a lot of thrash built in. So
another band, the first 3 albums sound nothing like each other. It's amazing.
Yeah, they really took a while to. I don't know. Well, did they ever really settle into a style? I don't know. But this one I like a lot, and I realize some folks don't. It is, as you just said, Marty, very different from the 2 that came before it. But for me, it's a really, really good example of getting the mixture right between between death metal and still having like, a really solid thrash metal backbone that, also helps hold it together. And it just works really well. Not sure what else to say about it. It's a band most folks know. They've got different styles. They've got, of course, a revolving door lineup. Someone just mentioned in the chat that, the While Heaven Wept lineup on Metal Archives, it looks like a high school yearbook listing. Pestilence, has to look like, the cast from, the HMS, Pinafore or something. Just way too many people in and out over time. But, this album, production works really well on it. The songwriting is very good. And again, they just get the balance right. There's not too much death metal. There's not too much thrash metal. They stick them together in the right way, and it comes together and really works nicely. So not everybody's favorite by them. I'm not going to say it is my favorite by them, but I think I tend to rank it higher than a lot of folks do because, I think it's just a really good blend of those two styles.
And you're right.
I was really close to pulling Spheres, but I figured one of you guys would pull that one. So
nope, didn't even think about it. Very jazzy though.
Yeah.
Yep. Spheres, again, has a fourth album, and they do something different yet again on that one. So, but a band I've appreciated more and more over time for the different things they've tried out, and they don't always work out great, but a lot of times, they're pretty interesting.
All right. This one might be stretching a little bit. Maybe not. We got Nile. This is In Their Darkened Shrines. This is not necessarily, it's still very much a brutal death metal album. The inclusion of other musical styles, I was going to point out the Egyptian scales that he tinkered with on this stuff as he got more and more into the Egypt concept. I read interviews where he was starting to reach out into, Egyptian musical scales and trying to incorporate that in with the death metal. And it did give them a very unique scales to work with and sounds and different guitar things that he would do. And it made them, even though this was largely brutal death metal, which doesn't maybe fit with an Egyptian theme, but somehow he made it work and made it their own. Very good stuff. That, like I said, that might have been a bit of a stretch, but yep.
Never would have thought to pull a Nile record for this episode. Like,
I was digging, man. I was like, God, this isn't as easy as I thought. And I was actually, Austin helped me with this when he mentioned, I'm like, oh, you're right. Totally right. But anyway, Matt's back.
All right. So this is another one that I don't think anyone really knows about. This is a record that was released last year, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. I never really saw that many people talk about this, but Echoes of the Eternal Word by Solar Cross.
Never heard
this.
of them.
Yeah, this came out through Transcending Records last year, and honestly, I think this is a band that would have fit in with the Bindrune stable of bands so much better than with what Transcending Records puts out there. This is a atmospheric black metal band, but they mix a lot of other elements into their sound. They have a lot of classic metal riffs going on in this thing. There's a little bit of shoegazy stuff, but not that much. It's just a very riff heavy record. It kind of has everything that you love about underground metal wrapped up in an atmospheric black metal kind of a sphere. And it's really sad because, like, my buddy of mine, he runs Transcending Records. He put this thing out thinking it was going to be huge, that it was going to light the world on fire, and nobody cared. Nobody cared at all.
Welcome to doing a label.
Yeah, like it's just it's one of those things where it's really indicative of a band that's fantastic. It's great. You put support behind it, but nobody out there cares. And he tried promoting it, and he's selling this on his website for $3 because he just made too many of them. So I highly recommend anybody who likes anything that Marty has ever put out on Bindrune Records, your Panopticons, your Nechachwins, all that kind of stuff. this is right in that wheelhouse, and you really need to check it out. It's really good stuff. Having said that, I'd say the first two songs are kind of, you're going to listen to them and be like, I don't know what the hell that bald idiot's talking about. This is kind of weird. But right after that, like it really picks up in song 3. And by the end of the record, you want to listen to the whole thing over again. It just, it encompasses so much. It's hard to describe because it has so many influences across the board to it. So great record, man. This Solar Cross is definitely fantastic. So want to give it just a little bit of a shout out here.
Right on.
Cool.
Alan.
Okay, so Pestilence mixed thrash and death metal together really well. Seventh Angel mixed thrash and doom metal together with more mixed results. You see what I did there. Those two styles are a tough one to blend because, thrash metal in general is meant to be, fairly aggressive. Doom metal is typically meant not to be very aggressive. And so it's kind of a strange sound they ended up with. It's not bad. It's also weird because they definitely have a punky undercurrent mixed in here a little bit as well, which is again trying to push the aggressive part of the music, but then it still has this heavy, more downtrodden kind of obsessed or Saint Vitus is, you feel like that's meant to be the main focus of the music. And yeah, this is an example where they had an interesting blend of influences, but for me personally, they didn't quite work out. I don't know if they just needed a little more time to try to refine the style and didn't get it because obviously, Seventh Angel, not exactly a household name amongst, the heavy metal spirits around the world. But also, not something else that a lot of other bands attempted to do. So they get points for originality. Thrash and doom is a tough sell. And I want to look to the chat here in a moment to see what other recommendations they got. Who else tried mixing thrash metal and doom metal this way?
Human Falafel said Confessor.
Confessor, and that album can be a hard listen to. There are some people that worship at that album.
Their comeback album was a little bit better.
Is it? I have not heard the comeback. I used to like the Condemned album, and then I didn't play it for like a decade. And the last time I listened to it, I was just like, what the hell's going on here?
I can't stand that dude's vocals and Confessor.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
The vocals really bad. I don't know if I just listened to it on the wrong day or maybe I finally listened to it on the right day, but yeah, the vocals were a real tough sell when I revisited that album a few years ago. Don't know. I'm also thinking maybe somebody like Dream Death, but there you're edging a little bit more to thrash mixed a little bit with like early death metal. Dream Death is almost just like a slow version of Hellhammer.
Kinda.
That kind of works.
Their music was kind of a mess too. I've got their one full length on tape and
Journey into Mystery,
and I need to check it out again. But back in the day, I bought it and I liked it. I just could never wrap my head around it for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I like it. It's not something I take out and play a ton, but I do like it at the end of the day. But yeah, the Seventh Angel, I had that back in the day. Didn't get into it. Recently picked it up. I want to say, is this a Dive Bomb reissue? Retroactive. Okay, maybe I bought it through Dive Bomb. But a cool concept, a Christian doom thrash band with killer cover art that looks a lot like Seagrave work.
Kind of.
And yeah, it just doesn't quite get there for me. But oh well, can't love them all.
Nope.
Marty, do you love the next album you're going to show us, or not at all?
Yeah, I like this band. This is a one-man project from Australia. So Simon, take note. I've never heard you talk about him on your channel. Not that you would, but this is Misartham. There's 3 records. This album is a Morse code thing, so it's not much I can't say the name of that. In fact, I can't read any of these because it's dark. Oh wait, I can't read it. So there's 3 Misartham records. This band is atmospheric black metal with a space theme, and he utilizes quite effectively, I might add, trance and techno music mixed in with it. It sounds like it's not something like a winning combination, but
my ears are burning. What's the name of this band again? What is
Mesarthum.
it?
Here, I'll put it in the
Yeah, send me some of that shit.
It's in the chat so you can see the spelling. It's really solid atmospheric black metal, but the occasional trance and techno inclusion is. I remember the first time I heard it, I laughed, but it fit. It seemed to work so well. The guy has just such a trained ear to mixing those. I mean, I bought 3 of the records. I keep going back to the Bandcamp and trying to find other records online, but they're all out of print and super expensive. So these are the 3 I have, and that's all I'm going to have because I'm not going to waste money on digital because I'll probably never listen to it. So definitely check it out if you're into that weird mix of black metal and techno trance type stuff. But yeah, this is another band I grabbed quickly when Matt came up with this because no one ever talks about them on the channels, and it's good stuff. It's solid stuff. What's that?
That's my first stop when we're off of here. I gotta listen to that band.
So this would be like in the first half of their catalog. I have not kept track with them since. So, and I'm looking at their. They've got Isolate is one of them I have here. The one with the code, and then I think I have an EP here as well. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full lengths. So he's been quite prolific since 2015. Definitely a band to look into. I know it would be right up your alley, Matt, probably. So
yeah, I'm definitely checking that out.
Okay.
So are you guys ready for some crap? Let's show some crap. We haven't shown any crap in a while. Gotta do a little pyogenesis here. I'm showing Sweet X-Rated Nothings as the example for the band, but again, another example of a band that has gone all over the place for the genres that they play in. Started as Death Doom, did this weird kind of typo negative meets Death Doom meets radio rock kind of a sound for this record. They went pop punk, then they did kind of metalcore stuff, and they're back together today, and they're kind of still in the deathcore, metalcore kind of a sound, but they're definitely a lot better today than they were during their pop punk era. But this is a band that I've always liked. I mean, I like all of their stuff. And again, it's just because I've liked them from their first record. It's a band I've just always followed. I don't listen to the pop punk albums hardly ever, but even those have a song or two that I can listen to and I'm totally fine with. But this album was probably their biggest record from their earlier days. I mean, they were signed to Nuclear Blast, Relapse at the time, back when those were kind of a shared label. And yes, I did do a deep dive on this band. Only 237 people watched it, but I only expected maybe 13 people to watch it. That's kind of what happens with my deep dive videos. But anyway, this is a really fun record if you want to listen to a band that is doing a different style every song. You know, this album, it's very it's not cohesive. Like it's got a Death Doom song, it's got a pop rock song, it's got songs where they're literally copying typo negative. I mean, it is so all over the place, and it's a very disjointed, crazy kind of a record. And I think this record really drove the band nuts, because after this they tried to they made a few dollars on this record. They started chasing the money and tried to be Blink 182 for far too long. It was really strange. But then they came back and they're a metal band again, and their new stuff is pretty decent. I enjoy it, at least. But this is a good record. It's fun, but you know, if you don't want to listen to any of that silliness, you could just listen to their first album, Ignis Creatio, the self-titled EP, and that's where most people kind of stop with this band, but I always recommend for people to broaden their horizons and listen to things outside of your comfort zone, because you never know what you're going to find. I mean, they've got some songs that are definitely in that pop punk realm that as a metalhead, I would never listen to otherwise unless it was Pyogenesis. You know, I'm never gonna buy a Blink 182 record. That's never gonna happen. But I love Pyogenesis, and they gave me some good pop punk. Not on this particular record, but on some other stuff. So again, you just never know. Broaden those horizons, people.
And I gotta say too, this is a good time to jump on the soapbox. You know, the whole deep dive thing. I know Matt puts a ton of time and effort into them, and even if it's a band I'm not into, I'll watch it just because I enjoy Matt's take and the way he describes the music. I mean, we have a similar thing going on with our Wednesday album club, and they're a lot of fun to do. Granted, it's a band you never heard of or a band you don't care about. You might not want to hear, you know, people talk about it for an hour, but I don't know. I think it's fun to hear people's personality and thoughts on something that you may have never heard of or never cared about. And it's just weird how it's kind of like a universal thing. You know, it's not only your channel that it happens to. It's like people don't care about reviews or deep dives on some certain bands. And I don't know. It's weird. But your Killing Joke one blew up, didn't it?
Well, the funny
Christian
thing,
Death one was huge.
The Christian Death deep dive that I did has like almost 10,000 views to it, which is crazy. None of my hardly any of my videos go over 1,000 views, but that one got huge. But I don't know, like the deep dive series, I put it to bed because I had like an initial list of bands that I wanted to talk about. I got through the list, I was done, and I replaced it with the new series, Discographobia, and I added rankings to it, thinking, you know, everybody likes ranking videos. You go and you look at like Thralls of Metal, and they're ranking videos for bands like Pantera and Cannibal Corpse. Who the hell cares? But they've got
apparently
like 30,000 views. Yeah, they got like 30,000 views on that shit. So I was like, oh, I'll throw some rankings into this, and like they get less views than the deep dive videos did. So I can't win, man. I can't win. So,
but in any case, if you're watching this, definitely click the link in the description. I'm pretty sure Alan set up the stream today, so you put a link to Matt down there.
Absolutely.
Yep. So go check out Matt's channel and subscribe. Damn it, he's doing the Lord's work.
Not clicking. It's right there, you lazy bastards.
That's right.
And
that's right
there.
Yeah, FW is correct. Radical Research, again, you know, they did a really great episode on Pyogenesis as well. So I'm not alone in my Pyogenesis love.
Did they do, was it Unpop? Was that the album they did, or was it?
No, they did Twin Ale Blood.
Twin Ale Blood, yeah.
Twin Ale Blood is the one that came out after this one, which is kind of the album that is the half metal, half pop record.
Yeah.
And then Unpop is where they went.
Unpop, great. Was the one where, just was like, what the hell happened here? Yeah. Twin Ale Blood got like no press or release or anything because, me and some friends were really into Sweet X-Rated Nothings, and we kept looking for another album. And the next one we saw or heard about was Unpop. So for years, we didn't even know Twin Ale Blood existed. It just...
Well, that's because we wasn't released in... Yeah, it wasn't released in the United States. That's why. It was only released in Europe, and you could only get it here as an import. Nuclear Blast didn't push it at all because they didn't think the U.S. market would care. And for some reason, because Unpop had Love Nation Sugarhead and Blue Smiley's Plan on it, those songs were so poppy, they're like, oh, we'll try the American market. So they popped up again over here. But most people don't like it. So.
All right. Alan.
All right. Here's one. I have not dusted off in a long time, but they definitely got a lot of accolades very early on for, sort of bringing some different styles together. I never really get the pronunciation right. Agalak? Uh-oh. That ain't good. Well. I'm not sure if I'm the only one on or if nobody else is on at the moment. Let's try a reload here.
I'm here. I just need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. I don't know if everybody left or
let's see. I think Matt is eating his dinner, just not on screen. So
okay, nothing was spinning.
I just have to pee. I'll be right
back.
That's
fine. Everyone disappeared at the same exact moment. It was like, is my connection dropped for some reason? We have had a lot of wind.
Pronunciation is Agalock.
Agalock. Okay.
Members of the band say it as well. So
I will go.
I'll be right back.
Then okay, so I'm here by myself, and it's cold and lonely, and there are wolves after me, like the majestic antlered critter on the cover here. I kind of missed Agalock when they first came out. I don't know why, but yeah, it was more when this album arrived that it's just I kept seeing more and more people talking about it. I'm just like, why does everybody care about this album with the giant moose looking thing on the cover? It just seemed like a weird album for everybody to gravitate towards. But, I eventually checked it out. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. That is actually pretty cool and interesting. I don't think, or I don't really know if they were the first band that, started trying to bring a lot more of the post-rock elements into a black metal framework or what. I get the sense they were probably not the first, but it's not a style I know in depth whatsoever. But yeah, making that kind of, combination really clicked when the first few albums came out. Towards the end, again, it seemed like people started to lose more interest. The last album I did not think was very good at all, and I haven't run into many people that like that one. But yeah, they definitely, at least for that time, were doing something different, or at least it was the first time that a wider audience got to hear a band combining these styles. And it's just like, oh, okay, you can have these kind of, sort of black metal vocals, but with maybe some post-rock structures and some different types of instrumentation worked in. And so overall, it actually came together pretty well, at least for certainly on the first 3 albums. Personally, I don't mind Marrow of the Spirit. I know some people, that's kind of was their jumping off point. But I think I was new enough to the band at that point, since I had missed Pale Folklore the first time around, that I was still pretty interested when Marrow came out. But yeah, not one that I've played recently. But when I get in the mood for them, I tend to work through the entire discography over for a couple of weeks. But then they do go back on the shelf for quite a while before they come out of hibernation.
You can tell on that record, John discovered Death in June. Either that or he decided to start working with a Death in June, influence with that apocalyptic folk, jangly acoustic guitar. But it's to me, very evident. And that album really took a long time to grow on me, because I thought I heard it and I'm like, okay, it's okay. They're, emulating Death in June, but it was a grower. And when it clicked, it's one of those. I mean, Pale Folklore is my favorite, but that album really did click. And I see why it really blew up. At the time, I just wasn't wanting to hear it, but it's good.
I got into it pretty quick once I heard it. I just avoided it for a while because it just part of it just weird cover title, and the name didn't really give much away about what it was going to be like. So I was just like, I don't know if that's something I'm interested in. But yeah, worked out pretty good. I think my knee-jerk reaction would be Ashes Against the Grain might be my favorite. I really like that.
That's album. A good album too.
I think it's extremely well put together. Definitely one that I should play more often. The Death in June comment's interesting. I've heard a few of their things here and there back in tape trading days, but I never really dived into it enough to absorb it and realize how much it was influencing some other things. It's one of those bands I need to sit down sometime and work my way through paying more attention to them for sure.
It's a long kind of scattered catalog. There's stuff that's noise. It's just a weird mix. There's they start off kind of like a post-punk band, and then they got really folky. Rose Clouds of Holocaust and What Ends When the Cymbals Shatter are 2 classics in their catalog. Good apocalyptic folk and kind of the framework for a lot of that genre. But yeah, I mean, some of the albums are good and some of it's not so good. And
those are the discographies I do have trouble with sometimes, because my luck is such that I always pick the shitty album to listen to first. It's like, okay, today, this will be the afternoon I try out Death in June. Let's pick that one. Oh, this sounds horrible. And then I found out, 3 years later, it's like, oh, well, why the hell did you start with that album? I was like, I don't know. It looked interesting. The title was cool. I don't know. So yeah, I have a history of picking the wrong band's album to start with sometimes. But I'll give them a try again sometime. I didn't mind the stuff I heard back when I was, some folks sent me some stuff by tape trading. It got lost in the never-ending sea of cassette tapes that kept showing up in the mail. So I just couldn't ever circle back around to it.
And people in the comments are making, fascist about fascism. I mean, he's a gay man from England that grew up when Hitler was bombing England. So he went through that whole he got very fascinated with World War II stuff. As far as I know, he's not a fascist. I don't know. I know he's certainly flirted with the fashion sense, but I don't know. I own very few Death in June albums, but the few I do have, when I'm in the mood for that, it's okay. But anyway.
All right, Marty. We'll send it over here to you then. What you got next?
Well, I'm going to show a non-metal album just because I like the way this band mixed gothic rock with spaghetti western style movies and jangly, maybe a bit of a country filtered through English tendencies musically. I don't know, but this has always been a special band for me. I think me and Matt did a deep dive on his channel over this band here some time ago.
Yeah, we did.
And I picked this band because I think they're a very metal adjacent band. If you're a metalhead, chances are you're going to like Carl McCoy's dark, deep, sometimes snarled vocal style. Again, this is very much gothic, but they come at it from a much more jangly perspective. I don't know. It's weird. It's just a cool dark cross of genres for me, and both visually and sonically. This is their debut album, and as they went, they got a little darker, a little bit heavier, and eventually adopted more of a metal persona. Like on Fallen, they started to get a little more metal. On Morning Sun, a lot of heavy guitars on there, but still they maintain the Fields of the Nephilim aesthetic sonically.
And that Nephilim record that Carl McCoy did, Zune, like that's pure industrial metal, like industrial death metal almost.
And it still sounds like Fields of the Nephilim, which is hilarious. It's a great record. And that in the US came out on Metal Blade of all places, which is bizarre. But yeah, Fields of the Nephilim. I thought I'd throw a little curveball there.
Oh, I figured you would.
I figured
that would be one of the first ones you picked.
Yeah, I almost picked them out too, but I was like, nah, Marty's got Fields covered. I don't need to go there.
Yep. Yeah, some people are mentioning in the chat Goth country is apparently an actual thing.
Really?
This is news to me. I'm going to make some jokes about it, but
here we go. Those poor bastards, some spooky acid country. Yeah. It's like sad bastard country with a goth, hot topic type of vibe mixed together.
So what do they do? Like, my cowboy hat is as black as my heart. I don't know how this works. I'm trying to picture it in my mind.
The inside of my
cowboy hat. It could be silly,
hat.
But maybe there's a way it works out. I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like something David Vincent would be all about, right?
Oh, no.
If there's chaps and spurs involved, then
not have that band.
Perfectly dyed beards. Ugh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I use the extra sharp spurs on my horse. I like to whip my horse through the blackest of night.
Is that why I'm all big on the screen?
What's that?
Am I up next? Is that why I'm all big on the screen?
Yep.
It is yours, sir.
I'm also going metal adjacent, but I feel like most people that are aware of this guy, they're aware of him from the metal world, but got to give it up for Mortis just a little bit. You know, this is a guy that godfather of dungeon synth, comes from the black metal world. He did this record, which is a very synth pop, like a really dark synth pop kind of a record. After this, he went industrial metal. You know, he's definitely dipped his hooked nose into a lot of different pools there. I've always really, really loved The Smell of Rain, though. I know this is kind of a make or break record with a lot of people when it comes to Mortis, but
I've
I
not
think
heard that one.
this is my favorite one. It, you know, it doesn't sound like dungeon synth, and it doesn't sound like his shitty industrial metal. Like, this is a really good dark kind of a synth pop record that I think fits in very well if you want to listen to something like, you know, something like Depeche Mode without it being so MTV friendly. You know, this is a really great record. So if you're open to it, Marty, I highly suggest you listen to this the next time you're in more of an electro kind of a mood.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I mean, we just got through October where I listened to nothing but Skinny Puppy for the entire month. So this was a nice record to kind of get me out
from. Yeah,
got me out of that and back into other kind of things. But great record. And again, this is another record where it was like a one and done kind of a thing. He never did anything else like this before or after. After this, he went into that mid 2000s industrial metal sound, and he stayed there, and he's still there. And even though he's back to doing dungeon synth again. I mean, his last full-length record was a remake of a previous dungeon synth record. So his last real record was shitty industrial metal. So, you know, I really wish he had stayed in this synth pop realm because he did it perfect. I mean, this is just a really great record. You know, not metal, but metal adjacent. And I can see in the comments a lot of people agree with me. You know, this is good, fun, dark stuff, and it's really catchy. Like you wind up singing along to this record, which you shouldn't do to depressing synth pop from Elfman. So
when you're singing along, are you dancing kind of?
I am. Can you not see me doing the little boogie woogie? I mean, I do.
Trying to dance like a little wizard, little trollish wizard.
I'm seeing the Oopa Loopa dance in my head right now.
Yep.
I mean, I have another puzzle for you.
Goes. Mortis has a great big fake nose.
He does. He does. I mean, and he had dreadlocks and the Spock ears and a bunch of gauze wrapped all over him, hanging out in a desert. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
What do you get when you smell all the rain? We could make this happen. But I'm going to be real good and put the brakes on right there for now.
The heavy metallurgy album is coming.
In time for the holidays.
I'm ready to listen to that album.
I am too. I'm ready.
Let's go.
All right, Alan.
All right. Let's try to inject a little class into our power metal. A band that tried to do this very early on, and it didn't catch on for quite a while. Virgin Steel, after their first couple of albums, which were, the first album is really just a rock album. The second album is a really good, kind of early US power metal album. After that, they had some lineup shifts. Dave DeFay kind of, took the helm of the ship, and DeFay, is a classically trained vocalist. I'm pretty sure he's also a classically trained pianist, if I remember correctly. And he started working in a lot more of this kind of, their tagline over the years became like barbaric, romantic, heavy metal. So it still had, the traditional metal structures and, would lean into power metal a bit. But there were more of these classically influenced piano lines used, and of course DeFay's very well done, very high operatic vocals, and they tried to inject a little bit more of this sense of classic European romanticism, the Roman and Greek imagery becoming a big thing, and they did it very, very well at times. it just didn't get off the ground for a long time. Part of the issue was nobody paid attention to virgin steel, especially stateside around the late 80s and early 90s. Part of the problem was they also had a bad tendency to mix those songs with some, real cock rock material. So, you get these great tracks, like, The Burning of Rome and Lions in Winter and Let It Roar. But then they'll put it next to, tracks like 17. Oh, sorry. I thought I heard Kip Winger somewhere nearby. It was always kind of a weird mix. It's like if they really should have dropped the schlock and went, much more full force towards the stronger material. It was evident to everybody what they were good at and what they wanted to do. But it was almost like they couldn't quite give up on trying to produce some kind of, hairspray teased out neon day glow MTV wannabe, party hit at the same time. But over time they finally did kind of purge those elements from their system and embraced what they should have been doing all the time. They got the epic vibes worked in, power metal influences, sure, but also having this a little more of the classically trained angle worked in, and they ended up making some fantastic albums. I actually like Age of Consent overall, the one I just showed, but they would move on to the two Marriage of Heaven and Hell albums, the two albums from the House of Atreus series, the Invictus album, which is my favorite one from that time. So they had a long streak of very, very good albums. The more recent albums have been a little harder for me to get into. They're a bit more hit or miss. Maybe I'm just not giving them enough time. Kind of feels like the well is running a little dry on ideas, that they're treading water more. But yeah, Virgin Steel moved on from becoming just a straightforward New York early 80s metal band by bringing in that classical background. And overall I think it worked out quite well.
Okay.
All right, Marty, what you got next, sir?
Well, following up on the Fields of the Nephilim, we've got Mind Rot with Dawning.
Mm-hmm.
I picked that one out
Very
too.
cool.
But...
Again, this is pretty heavy, dark death with a little bit of grind going on. And then like the first song, the title track, or maybe it was Anguish, I don't remember which track, they break into this really dark clean guitar tone, and the guy comes in singing like he's Carl McCoy from Fields of the Nephilim. So the Fields of the Nephilim influence certainly washed off on this material a little bit, and it's a very cool mix of death and a little bit of grind, a little bit of gothic. Solid record, really well produced. They also put out an EP, which I guess I sent to Alan back in the day. I don't remember doing that.
Yeah, we traded something there. You traded me Mind Rot's Dawning and one other CD, which I do not remember. I sent you two CDs in return. I couldn't tell you what they are now. It would have been... We did that trade either in the fall of 99 or the spring of 2000. I'm not sure, but it would have been in that 6-month period.
A couple years ago.
It's been a minute. It has been a minute. But yeah.
I don't know how available this is to find these days, but I would definitely recommend. Really? I would recommend it.
You can get those Mind Rot albums really cheap. Nobody cares about that band.
That's crazy.
They
never
was
good.
gotten any attention.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're a good band that definitely do a lot of different stuff.
Yep. And they did it well. Very solid record. Heavy, dark, unique. It was good.
Yep.
You're up, Matt.
All right. Speaking of a record that just came out like a couple days ago or whatever, Moonspell, Sin Pecado. This is a band that's, kind of went off the reservation a few times, but I don't know. This is a record when it came out, I hated it. I absolutely hated it because I loved Irreligious and Wolfheart and Under the Moonspell. Like those are all great records, but even those, they very different from album to album. The gothic elements kind of take over from the black metal elements, and then they come here and they basically put out a dark wave record. And today, when I'm in the mood to listen to Moonspell, this is where I go most days. I go to Sin Pecado. and I don't really know why. I just really love this record. But this is again a band that changed it up from album to album, but they always kind of sounded like them. You know, they never really sounded like they were outside of their field. And I think a lot of that is just because of the dude's vocals. He has a very distinct voice, a very gothic voice, and he's always sounded like that. Even after this era, they got heavier and heavier as they went on, but they've always sounded like Moonspell, even when they were playing around with some symphonics and some different kind of elements. But this is a great record. I mean, if you've never checked out Sin Pecado and you like the darker synthy kind of rock, this isn't really even a metal record, but it's good stuff. I like this one a lot.
With Count Chocula on vocals. Rick is right.
Well, you know, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
You know what I suddenly want to hear? I want to hear the vocalist from Moonspell sing on a Bal Sagoth album.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I want to hear the full narration with the very heavy kind of pseudo fake faux Transylvanian accent.
That works.
They try to gather
great.
on the Hyperborean plains to attack the ice-veiled throne of Ultima Thule. Now that I've done it out loud, I'm not sure that would move many units. It's probably best that they don't record that. That might not work out for them.
I mean, I'd buy it, so I'm gonna.
I would too, but that's only 2 copies. If they need a pressing of at least 63 for the Bandcamp Die Hard edition, I'm not sure they could get there. That's tough.
Probably not.
Yeah,
and you're up, sir.
They're a good example of a gothic metal band. So.
They can call it Count Sagoth. There you go. Rearrange the logo just a little bit. It'll look like vampire fangs and some bat wings. we can make this happen too.
Wow,
we got good ideas going here.
Lots of things happening every week. We come up with something.
Something. Last week we came up with me eating potato chips and ketchup, which in hindsight probably wasn't a good idea. But you know what they say? Hindsight is always 2020.
Oh my God.
I've been saving that for 2 hours, waiting for its time. Bam! Right there.
Dropped it like it's hot.
Right. Knew the moment would rise.
Yep.
Patience. Like a cobra.
Like a sex condor.
Now it's time to strike.
Sharpening his talons of lust. Yeah. All right.
Somehow the cobra suddenly became strangely erotic. I'm not sure why that happened. I'm a bit thrown for a minute. Give me a moment to regroup here. Okay. We have our sex condor, and now the love cobra has made an appearance.
Watch out, Mel. If you're watching, Mel.
Strong. The dad jokes are strong tonight, man.
Mel, if you're watching, head for the high ground. All right, you're up, Alan.
All right. I want to talk about a band I like quite a bit.
Sorry. Anyway,
okay.
go ahead.
I like this band a bit. I don't hear folks talk about them much anymore. It's another group that seemed to be more in vogue 20 or so years ago, but Social Distortion.
Oof.
They had, that, early, kind of, hardcore legacy, of course. And then Mike Ness went to jail. And, when he got, out and put the project back together, he obviously, was pulling in a very different set of influences. The big one, of course, being, the Johnny Cash sound. And so you got this, Johnny Cash meets hardcore thing, which doesn't sound good when you say it out loud. But personally, I liked this style. I thought this worked a little bit better than the real early stuff. Mommy's Little Monster certainly has its fans, and it's not bad. If that was the band's entire legacy, I'm not sure they would be remembered, all that well. But, when they started getting, these albums, out, Sex and the one after this, Sex and Love and Rock and Roll, White Heat, White Trash, this style just really worked for me. It rocks out enough. It's catchy. It's fun, But yeah, it has, that, downtrodden, white trash kind of, blues element to it that fits very well. Maybe some of it's just Mike's voice. Maybe some of it's, his life story and experiences just, are able to really bring that message home and convey it really well. But I really dig these particular albums. They, at the end of their run, and I forget the last album they put out, there had been a lineup change, if I remember right. One of his longtime bandmates had passed away, and so that last album just didn't come together well at all. But yeah, these are still some really fun albums that have a distinct style. And again, maybe there's more bands that do blend those kind of elements together. Hardcore and its various forms is not something I'm very well versed in. This was a band my roommate got me into back when I was in grad school in Texas. And I got him into Misfits. He got me into Social Distortion. Well, we considered it a pretty equal trade. But yeah, not a band that folks seem to be that into. And I guess, hey, that's okay if it's not your style. But I can definitely dig what they did on the albums once Ness came out of prison and discovered his inner Johnny Cash.
What did he go to jail for? I know like next to nothing about that band.
Oh, what did he not go to jail for? By his own admission, he's like, I was just a complete fuck up. Constantly fighting, drugs, drunk, disorderly, robbing, theft, robbery. I don't know which one was the third strike, but pick a card, any card, and it probably would apply.
All go hand in hand, though. All the above, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in his case, yeah, just go hand in hand, but at full tilt, in those early insane days. But hey, he pulled it together and found a path, and it worked out pretty good for him. So kudos to Mike Ness.
Okay. Well, next up we have Obsequiai's Aria of Vernal Tombs.
Ah, yep. Mm-hmm.
This is what makes this a union of styles. Well, we've got pre-Renaissance medieval music mixed with melodic death metal. Tanner's quite a great harpist, so there's a lot of that on here. They also, I think on this he employed a guy from Italy. I can't remember whose specialty is harp. I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff going on this. I think a lot of people think that this. I think if you were to listen to bands like Fall of the Leaf on the album Evanescence Ever Fading, you would hear a big influence that really played out on Obsequiai's sound. Tanner was obviously a scholar of that style, and he ran with it and really did some awesome things with it. The Obsequiai albums are all fantastic. Really good stuff. He's really bringing rich, beautiful harmony and melodies and traditional instrumentation to the melodic death metal world for sure. And great stuff. Good combination of styles that works really well together too, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good pull. I did not think of them for some reason tonight. I must have glanced right past them looking over the album shelves.
Right on. Okay. What you got, Matt?
All right. I may have shown this album on a previous Heavy Metallurgy episode, but that just goes to show how great of a record this is from a band that mixed pretty much every single type of underground extreme metal that you can think of and crammed it all into one album. The Goat of Mendes by Akerkaki, however you pronounce it. Oh, wait, there's boobs. Sorry, censors.
I don't care.
Can't let you look at the boobs. You can see some undercarriage there, though.
The chromium dioxide episode, Alan showed all the boobs.
All the boobs, but
yep.
No, this is a great band. I mean, they started on Peaceville and then they went to Earache for a little bit, and I think they're back on Peaceville now. But yeah, I mean, this record in particular, all their records are great, but this is the one where they mix death metal, black metal, grindcore, some symphonic stuff. I mean, all of it, and it goes so fast too. Like every song goes between those three main genres, between black, death, and grind. It's just all over the place, a complete blitzkrieg, and it's a great record. I recommend, if you have never heard this band, start with the song "A Skin for Dancing In." That is probably my favorite song by this band. And yeah, great stuff, man. If you like death metal, black metal, and grindcore, this one right here has all of it. So
they're all snappy dressers.
That's really all there is to say about this record.
Snappy dressers. Weren't they the guys that wore the suits and ties?
Yeah, they always wore suits and ties, and they came across as like the most pretentious band in the world when they came out because of that. And they always said that, yeah, we try to present ourselves as like real professionals. That's why we wear suits and blah, blah, blah. And they also are like, we love beautiful women. That's why all of our albums have naked women on them. And they were just like so cringy back when they came out. But, you know, separate art from artist, and you can enjoy great when it comes to Akerkaki. So
right on.
Good stuff.
Alan.
All right. I haven't shown much new wave of British heavy metal tonight, so let's do one of those. A couple of those bands did stick some different sounds together. The example I picked was Pagan Altar.
Good band.
Good, very good band. Weird history to the band because, you know, they reportedly recorded a lot of stuff back during the heyday of new wave of British heavy metal, but they never released anything. There were no singles, there were no compilation appearances, there was no recording contract, and but they apparently had these recordings that sat around and kind of eventually, you know, circulated just, you know, on you know, tape trades and got bootlegged, and you know, then the band, you know, came out of hiding and made a go of it. But when they did that, they, especially, you know, on this album, which is, you know, the one that really got them on the radar for most folks, Mythical and Magical, they had, you know, a more doomy style of in the early days. So they usually get put next to Witchfinder General as being one of the more Sabbath influenced new wave of British heavy metal groups. But on this album, you know, they have, you know, a very strong sort of, you know, 70s rock vibe as well. That it gives it a much more kind of laid back feel, a little bit more of a folksy kind of vibe, but it's extremely well done. It just, the songs are paced very well. They're all given time to, you know, let the track develop and go somewhere without ever dragging or taking too long. And so, yeah, you get this very dreamy kind of atmosphere so that it doesn't really feel, you know, as Sabbathy or doomy as the first material the band had from back in the day did. And yeah, no other bands necessarily ever tried doing that came out of the new wave of British heavy metal. So this was one that, yeah, again, 20 years ago, people were just nuts about this. And I understood why when I heard it. It's just like, yeah, that's pretty amazing stuff. It's another band that seems to have dropped off of people's radar over the years, though. And admittedly, their last album left a lot to be desired. It was another case where, kind of like Social Distortion, band member had passed away. They had some material in the works. You know, they made sure, you know, the album got done, but it just doesn't really live up to what they had done on, you know, the previous recordings. It still has some good songs on it. It's not an awful album. It's almost like you can kind of tell their heart wasn't in it, which probably wasn't given the circumstances. But yeah, you know, around this period, people were gaga for Pagan Altar. You know, their older stuff got reissued multiple times. There's some pretty cool reissues on different colors of vinyl with different, you know, sleeve designs and gatefolds. I will say, if you have any of the older bootlegs and you ever try to sell them, like on eBay, the band for years was militant about having their stuff pulled off of eBay. I don't know if they still are, but you could not list, you know, an early, you know, boot pressing of the first Pagan Altar material. It would be off eBay in less than 24 hours. Those guys must have been checking literally twice a day, filing a report every single time something popped up. So it made those early ones a bit hard to get because there was no Discogs. Discogs doesn't really sell boots most of the time anyway. And then you couldn't get those listed on eBay, so they were always a little bit of a pain to track down if you wanted the early stuff. But they are out there, and there's now official releases of it too, so you don't really need the boots unless you're just an absolute completist. But yeah, a cool band. One of the might be the only new wave of British heavy metal band I pulled tonight that mixed some different things together.
All right. This way. Sorry, wrong buttons. Okay. I could have went with Typo Negative for this, but I chose to go with this album instead. Carnivore Retaliation, the second and final Carnivore record, mixing New York hardcore with Beatles and Black Sabbath. It's kind of like what, you read the book that Jeff Wagner did, and Peter was a huge Beatles and Black Sabbath fan. And even in this stuff, you can kind of hear it, man. You can hear it. You got Manic Depression, which is a Hendrix cover, but still it fits on here. This is just a great record. It's super ridiculous, controversial lyrics for the time, though it's all pretty tongue-in-cheek. A lot of people didn't take it as such, but this is out of the New York hardcore stuff. This to me is one of my favorites. This along with Cro-Mags, Age of Coral. But always loved this record. Really heavy, really unique. Peter's vocal style is great. I love the bass tone, which he carried over into Typo Negative, of course. Instant classic. Great stuff. Check it out if you haven't heard it.
Yep. And speaking of Pete Steele, let's see, the guys over, once again, plugging Radical Research hard tonight, but they mentioned on one of the recent episodes that Jeff is working on finally getting a reprinting of his Pete Steele biography.
Souls on Fire, right?
Souls on Fire, yeah, which it's been out of print and very hard to find and very expensive to find for a while now. But Jeff is working on that, hopefully in the near future. So if you were interested in that and didn't get a copy and you don't feel like spending your family's entire Christmas budget to buy a used copy off of Amazon or something, it's in the works. Jeff and Hunter are trying to get that as well as some other merch back over on the Radical Research website pretty soon. So make sure you check that out for all your holiday shopping needs.
Right on. All right, Matt.
Alan needs to be a professional commercial guy, man.
I can shill. Absolutely. Sign me up.
Sell.
Sell me, you beautiful bastard. All right. So we're
the love cobra. Absolutely.
We're gonna go back to those weird early 2000s for I don't know why I pulled out so many of these synthy black metal records, but this was my favorite shit back when I was 19, 20 years old. So it kind of just goes hand in hand for tonight's episode. But Avant-garde by And Oceans. This
they got
is
a new album coming out. Did you see that? They have a new album coming out?
I didn't see that they have another new one. They came out with one, I think, last year that was excellent.
Maybe
Absolutely
that's the
excellent.
one. I thought maybe I saw something else.
Yeah, Cosmic World Mother was their last record. Fantastic record. But this thing, I don't know how well this has really aged over the past 20 some odd years, but
that cover art sucks so bad.
It is so 2001. I mean, it's so 1999 actually, but oh god, it's awful. But this was a band that was a really weirdo kind of symphonic black metal band, and then for some reason when they did this record, they started playing with those more industrial sounds like a lot of the other industrial metal bands of the time. And I always loved this record back then, and I can still throw this on every once in a while and enjoy it, but it is definitely a product of its time, just where can't remember who it was. There's a commenter on one of my videos where I was talking about stuff like this. The Aberum deep dive that I just did, he called this stuff Y2K black metal, and I think that sums it up perfectly. I wish I could remember who made that comment. Sorry if you're watching, person, whoever you were, but that's a perfect description for stuff like this. This, early 2000s, late 90s, just post-futuristic sound that was getting mixed in with black metal. And I don't think that this record holds up as much as certain other ones do, but I still enjoy it, like as a nostalgia kind of a thing. But good stuff. And Oceans, they're a great band. They really only have one stinker of an album in their discography. I would not say that is this one, but yeah, good stuff. And Oceans, and that is the last CD. We're going to straight vinyl from here on out. So I've got like about 50 more records pulled out. You guys down for it?
I'm ready.
All right.
All right, Alan.
All right. Well, we haven't touched on one big chunk of sort of mid-90s death metal that it was very noteworthy for mixing different influences. The Gothenburg sound. And for that, I picked early In Flames. The first time I heard In Flames, somebody had dubbed me the Subterranean EP. And just listening to those first couple of tracks, I was amazed because like, this is like a death metal band that must love Halloween or something, because it had this very strong sense of melody. The guitar work on it was really interesting, and it was such a counterpoint to all the very brutal death metal. Who could be the heaviest, who could be the goriest, that had really dominated for the years leading up to this. It's just like, that's really interesting, and I think that's part of the reason bands like In Flames and Dark Tranquillity did really well. Once they got out of that lowermost rung of the underground and started to get some attention, there were a lot of people that were just getting real sick of hearing how many bands are going to try to rip off Cannibal Corpse and somehow do a worse job of it. It got very, very old after several years, and so to hear bands still taking a very aggressive stance with death metal, but in a very different way, adding a lot more melody, all the different interwoven guitar work and stuff, and showing a nod towards more classical metal roots mixed in there was always really interesting and kind of fun. I don't go back and replay a ton of Gothenburg stuff these days. It's relatively rare that these get back off the shelf, but yeah, it was something that was very unique, and it interjected sort of a fresh take on death metal around that time, which the genre sorely needed by the time these bands were starting to get some notice. So, but yeah, I picked this one because again, Subterranean was kind of my first exposure to it, and that was always my first impression. It just clicked right away that this is death metal, but this is how I want to hear death metal now. I don't need to keep hearing the same stuff that's been out for a while. This is going to be very popular moving forward, and hey, I was right. Good for me.
You were. You nailed it. Yep.
I get a donut.
I gotta say, if you do choose to pull that out again, pull out Jester Race. I get on that record every once in a while, and I can't let it go for a couple days. It's so good. It still holds up so good. So
no, the albums are fine. They're just
so unshakable,
Oh yeah, Jester Race. I Jester Race is fine. I like Horacle. I know by that point some folks are getting a little leery of In Flames, but
they're still good at Horacle, and Colony.
Horacle is still good, and even half of the one after that is still
Colony.
Yeah, at least half of Colony I still like a lot.
Yep.
And yeah, and all the early Dark Tranquillity stuff up through at least Mind's Eye is very, very good. They get over to Century Media, and it gets a little hit or miss at that point, as we've discussed on other shows. But yeah, those two bands, really had something pretty special going there on all their early releases.
I almost hate pulling this record because I've shown it so many times, but it fits this. Amok by Sentence.
I've been leaving it for you.
Yeah, it's
people were clamoring for it about an hour ago. It's like, nope. Let's wait for Marty.
I still love this record, and it's so catchy, well written, and it's metal with a gothic rock vibe. And Tinelli Jarva plays bass and sings on it, and he's got the nails the Carl McCoy Fields of the Nephilim snarl and darkness. This is a favorite record for sure. I really love this record. Again, another band that did not put out the same record for their first 4 albums. Kind of impressive. I wish they would have stuck around with this a little bit longer. They did put out the Love and Death EP, which was also in this scope. And if you want to hear more of this style, go check out Jarva's band that he formed after he left Sentenced, called the Black League. They put out Icor and an EP. I can't remember the name of the EP, but both of them were very good in this, along this line of Amok as well. So, yep, Sentenced Amok. I had to show it.
Yep. I was actually going to pull North from Here because that one also mixes weird styles together.
That's a great record too. It really is a great record.
Fantastic record.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
Me again. All right.
You are back.
Surprised none of us have brought up Enslaved yet, but I had to pull out the one that is kind of the, I don't know, kind of the departure point for this band.
That's a transition album for sure.
Yeah, this is really where they ramped up we're a prog black metal band now. We don't really know how to do it perfectly well yet.
No, and you can tell on that.
You can tell, but you know, the desire was there, and it definitely gets pretty weird here. But I've always loved this record. You know, I like most Enslaved albums. This one is a nice repress I got from Osmos back, I don't know, 2017 or whatever. But I've always liked this record, and you know, I don't know. This is a band that I wish they would abandon the black metal vocals at this point, because I think they've really perfected what their sound is at this point, and I find that the black metal vocals don't really match the music that they're playing anymore. But back in this era, you know, it still kind of made sense. But I don't know. I wish this band would just, you know, pull an Opeth and just knock it the fuck off. But it's,
I don't know. Gorilla's vocals are still pretty killer. I don't know.
I mean, they're still good. They're still good, but they're not a black metal band anymore. So, you know, a non-black metal band doing black metal vocals, I mean, come on, just advance a little bit or change.
Yeah.
Make it match up a little bit better. But having said all of that, that's just a little Matt rant. Had to throw at least one of those out for you guys. But yeah, I love Enslaved. I love this record. I actually like the one before this one a lot more. Marge Realm, Beyond the Within. That's one of my favorite Enslaved records. But I pulled this one specifically just because this is where they went, like, you know, we're trying to be a prog metal band now, more so than before. But good stuff right here. Good stuff.
All right, Alan.
All right, since we kind of discussed North from Here, but I didn't show it, I picked something very similar, at least to a point. Germany's Sulfur Eon. They do kind of a similar thing that Sentence was doing, where, you know, they're really straddling, you know, some of, you know, the Black and Death influences and coming up with a very good, unique sound for it.
I don't have that record. I thought I did, but I don't. I need to get it.
Okay. Yeah, this is their third one, the Scythe of Cosmic Chaos. Sulfur Eon is, you know, pretty easy to understand. It's, you know, German death metal, but blackened death metal, or is it deathly black metal? Regardless of what it is, it's all Cthulhu all the time. You know, they always have killer paintings for artwork.
Yeah.
But yeah, the songs are almost nonstop, you know, straight out of, you know, the Lovecraft mythos. But they're done very, very well. Excellent songwriting, excellent playing. But yeah, this is another one that some people would probably say put it on the black metal shelf, and other folks are like, no, put it on the death metal shelf.
What shelf is it on?
For me, shit, what shelf did I get it off of?
How can you even fucking find it if you don't know where to grab it from?
Yeah, for me, it's on. I keep it on the death metal shelf for this one.
That's a good call.
I keep it on the death metal shelf. The second album in particular, it has a little bit more of a tech death lean to it. The first album had a little bit, you know, more emphasis on melody. This album strikes a good balance in between the two. It's not as techy as the second album, but yeah, maybe a little more so than the first album. So excellent band that
they're excellent.
Again, they do exactly I've said it several times tonight, but when bands are mixing these styles together, it's all about getting the right balance. That you don't have too much of one thing, not enough of the other thing. Sulfur Eon is really good at hitting that sweet spot where black and death metal meet one another. So yeah, can't go wrong with any of their albums. One of those bands on the Van Records label, which Van has a really good roster, and Sulfur Eon's one of the best on that label.
Agreed. All right. Time to sniff my own farts here, I guess. Nachachuan. This is the EP Oto. What Aaron and Andrew do quite well is Aaron is a trained, very talented classical acoustic guitar player. He's also trained in flamenco and a bunch of other styles. And how he incorporates it in with the metal aspect of Nachachuan is quite inspiring. There isn't any bands out here that sound like Nachachuan, to be completely honest. This EP is kind of a special one. The first side 1 is all acoustic tunes, and side 2 is the metal, Heahona and Pekikaluel. I can't say it. It's native. But it's also cool. He writes about native topics, and not from a war aspect. It's very kind of the thing that bands do nowadays is they come at the indigenous population's history from war, and he is more about healing and just talking about historical times, and there's a lot of hope in this music, and I really love it. Great band. Absolutely one of my favorites for sure. Nachachuan. Flamenco guitar and metal? Yes, it can be done. It can be done. Matt.
All right. Well, I'm going to pull the Band-Aid off. Everybody knew I had to show an Ulver record, right? And it just
there
had
it is.
to happen. And it's next up in my stack here on the floor. So I decided to show Shadows of the Sun, which is probably their most introspective, depressing record that they've ever done. And, everybody knows who Ulver is, but even when you look back at the early acoustic black metal stuff that they pretty much perfected, they had a sadness and a darkness to their sound that has carried through even to their more synth pop sounding records today. Like there's still kind of a darkness to it there, but I don't think they ever did a record that got as sad and depressing as this record. I mean, this one is ridiculous. It is just so lo-fi and dark. It's really the only way I can put it. And the people that say, this is a band that went from black metal to synth pop, you're missing a lot of good records in between there, and this is one of them. I would say people that don't like the modern Ulver stuff, I mean, have you listened to this one? This is probably one you should probably check out, especially if you like really dark, sad sounding stuff. This is where you want to go. But this is a band that has never done the same album twice. They mix everything up. I mean, their first record is acoustic black metal. Their second one's just acoustic. Their third one is noisy, raw black metal, and then they went bonkers after that. Yeah. But, to me, this isn't Shadows of the Sun isn't one of my favorite Ulver records. I know a lot of people say that this is their favorite out of all of them. I tend to lean more towards, their more avant-garde stuff like Perdition City and Blood Inside, but I also really love their synth pop stuff. Assassination of Julius Caesar, Flowers of Evil. I mean, I love it all. But this record, you have to really be in the right kind of headspace to listen to this one, But again, just a band that has never done the same album twice. They've got something for everybody, something for everybody.
Cool. That's cool.
Unless all you listen to is like Cannibal Corpse, they've never done a death metal record. But they go listen to Nadin's Madrigal, and you'll be happy, I guess.
Great riff album, so good.
Yeah, all their records are good, and I always get kind of annoyed when people just say they sound like Depeche Mode today, because they don't sound anything at all like Depeche Mode, but it's just an easy low-hanging fruit kind of a thing to throw at them, but they don't sound like that at all. So
All right.
Zach knows
Alan.
what's up. Zach knows what's up. That's right.
Hell yeah. All right.
All right. Well, one more on Van Records, since landed there for my last pick. I gush about this band a lot, but they also fit the topic here tonight, so we're going to talk about them some more. Germany's Atlantean Codex. They
love it.
They really do a good job of bringing together the early Bathory sound, the early Manowar sound. They get that epic vibe. It's got the classic traditional heavy metal framework to it. It's got some of the older Candlemass doomy vibe worked in. But they've got, this very amazing singer with a very clear voice, more like in the Michael Kiske camp of, just strong, crystal clear, angelic type of vocalist. And they put it all together absolutely perfectly. It all just comes together just right. It is if epic metal is its own genre, which I'm not 100% sure it is. It's been discussed on the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club before. But if there's a poster child for epic heavy metal, it's got to be this band, in my opinion. They do it all, and I guess the thing that really helps bring it together too, they do it without it becoming cheesy. Which that's could be a matter of opinion, but there really isn't the usual things about this band that would make other bands in this style come across as like, yeah, that's kind of goofy. There's none of this, hail and kill brothers of metal, or I'm riding the magic dragon to save the princess, or any of this bullshit.
Where is the Heavy Metallurgy compilation album featuring all songs by Let's Talk Metal?
Someone out there right now, and I have a bad feeling I know who it is starting to splice together clips from various videos, and we're going to get you.
I've already fallen victim to that. Yes,
we know somebody who runs a record label, so I mean, I think we can make something happen here, guys.
The signing bonus is a Bentley, so
I'm listening.
Anyway,
but yeah, a lot of bands that want to do this style, they can't get out of the Conan the Barbarian lyrics. They get stuck on that the Robert Howard stuff, and they don't go any further. There's nothing wrong with that. Like we said at the start of the show, sometimes you're in the mood for the very straightforward meat and potatoes kind of thing. But sometimes you get a little tired, of hearing the raise my sword to the enchanted castle, to the dragon, to the sword, to the warrior, to the brother, to the metal, to the sword. Did I mention a sword yet? There's none of that on this stuff. There's none of it. This dives very deeply into history and mythology, magic, religion, and does it, from a very, very more interesting, thoughtful standpoints.
Very studious position for sure.
Yeah, it's academic in a way, but it's not pretentious academic. No. It's not reading. It's just like, I need a thesaurus to figure this out or anything. They really. Just hit all the right cylinders, and again, it's the perfect balance of these different elements. So, yep, Atlantean Codex gets mentioned there for sure. Interestingly, a footnote just for folks that may have caught it: Banger TV did a new wave of traditional heavy metal episode recently on one of their Lockhorns series. And they left Atlantean Codex out of new wave of traditional heavy metal.
Don't know what's up. They just don't.
Who are you talking about? I've never heard of that channel. Who was it?
It's this redheaded guy from Canada, who was talking to a very knowledgeable blonde lady in Finland who likes a lot of heavy metal. So
yeah, she really likes appropriately lengthed records too. From what I recall,
yeah, she's never going to live that one down. But
no.
Everybody's off sometimes. But
Yeah, that put her on my shit list for sure. Ryan's got one up here for you too, up on the screen. There,
oh,
Alan.
sorry, Ryan. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, while you're at the drugstore, grab a box of Trojans just in case the love cobra needs to come make a visit. Remember, Trojans for all your heavy metallurgy love time needs. After the show's done tonight, slide on into bed.
Unless you want to have it delivered to your home, the sex condor can drop those items off for you.
Scoot those beds back, a little closer together so you have a little his and hers for the love cobra.
He must be stopped. Okay.
Yes, I must be stopped. Marty, take it away. I got to go get something to drink.
Okay,
yes, you need another drink, Alan. Please, please keep drinking.
Still sniffing my own farts here, but Panopticon's Kentucky. This is pretty much a break. I'm sorry. You can talk about it as well here. It's pretty much a breakthrough album for Austin. What is the styles at hand here? Obviously an American black metal foundation with a heavy-handed dose of bluegrass and country elements and this is a very much for the Kentucky coal miners.
Your version looks different than mine. Is that the one you released?
No, this is the OG pressing. This came out on Pagan Flames and Handmade Birds.
Okay, mine's the Lunder.
He's the cover. Yeah,
mine's the Lunder Records, the Flenser pressing that I've got.
There's been alternations of the cover every pressing. It's about to go back to press. It's a 10-year anniversary. We're going to repress it here going very soon. So, excellent stuff. I mean, the bluegrass on here is interesting. He really kind of took a leap of faith with this stuff. And I don't think he really even thought about it. He just did it. And it's pretty bold and brave. And it really kind of put him on the map. People really kind of took notice of the different, union of sounds. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, that was my entry point with Panopticon, was with Kentucky. And when you read about it on the internet and such, just hearing about bluegrass mixed with black metal, that is such a cross purposes kind of a thing. I think it made a lot of people just pay attention. And I don't, like you said, that probably wasn't the point or what they were after, what he was after, but I mean, it worked. I mean,
yeah,
this is a great record though. That's still one of my favorites by Panopticon. So
agreed.
Yep. All right.
He signed to, or he started working with you right after this record, didn't he? With Roads to the North.
Yep. You're up. Show another one, Matt.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to go to a completely different place, but Low by Testament.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that, when I took a second pass through the record collection, I pulled this out. I didn't even think about it, but this is where Testament started playing around with death metal a little bit. It's not really a death metal record, but there's the growls on here, and that was definitely the influence that they were playing with. And not ashamed to admit it, but this was my entry point with Testament. I was shopping with my friend Mike, who runs Transcending Records, back when we were in high school, and he was a big Testament fan, and this was the only Testament album that was at the Borders Music CD store, and he said, yeah, just buy that, it's Testament, you'll like it. And just happened to be Low, and I've always had a really strong affinity for this record. And I even like Demonic, the one that came out after this, that's a little bit more in this death metal vein. Yep. It's not as good as Low, but I don't know, it's always shocked me when people talk crap about this record, or they don't really like this one. I've never understood why, because every song on this record is a banger. I mean, Dogface Gods, how do you not go insane when you listen to Dogface Gods? I just don't get it. Hail Mary, Trail of Tears, it's all good stuff, man. Great record. But
Yeah, good run.
Testament is one of my favorite, thrash metal bands anyway. So
They're great. They're still putting out good shit.
They are. I mean, I recommended we do a deep dive on Testament here, but you guys wanted to talk about bands that blend styles instead. So, I still had to pull a little Testament to get the best of both worlds.
The Testament, topic was a good idea. I figure that's something that we'll definitely revisit with you in the future. That seems like one that would be very easy for us to put together sometime if we have like a week where we don't have much time to prep. But since we got on this one early this week,
I'm just teasing you, Alan. Just teasing you.
No, I like the idea. It would have been the second one I would have voted for on that on the list that you sent.
Both are fun topics, but Low is a fantastic Testament record. Drives me crazy when people don't agree.
It was a lot better than I thought it would be when I first heard it, because it was an album I avoided for a while because people shit on it so much. It was like,
well, I think a lot of it was because I think it's the first album without Alex Skolnick for a while, and I think maybe that's why people were against it.
Low's got James Murphy on it, right?
Murphy's on it.
Yeah, James Murphy plays on it, and so does the drummer for White Zombie, John Tempesta, is in the band at that time, and he left Testament to join White Zombie. So, fun stuff though.
Yeah, and the cover art didn't help any. That's never a great way to judge an album, but
well, that's what sucks about this pressing that I have, because I don't think this ever originally came out on vinyl. Like, this was when vinyl was not being made, so they just took the CD artwork and blew it up. This is so blown out, like you can't tell by looking at it on this little screen here, but this is so blurry, and I hate it when I come across records like this. But what can you do? Like, records that never originally came out on vinyl, you get those from time to time. So
absolutely. All right, Alan.
All right, I haven't seen Brian Arkham in the chat tonight. Has anybody seen Brian? Where are you, Brian?
He's not here tonight. I haven't seen him.
He might be a show. He doesn't. He said, "Oh, the Dark Path is on." Fuck that guy. I'm out of here.
No, he might have had a prior command. I had one I was saving because I know sometimes he jumps on a little bit later. But
he's like the vice president of the My Matt's a Dick fan club, or club.
How many vice presidents of that club do you have, man? It's like Jesus every time.
I can't.
No, Brian's a good dude. I like Brian.
Brian's a good dude.
I do too, and I was saving this one until he was on because he sent me this, and I had never heard of it. Excuse me, didn't know anything about the band, so it was just kind of a blind. It's like, Brian, sorry, give me a second here.
Goes down smooth like sex condor.
That's good love, Cobra. All right, now maybe I can talk again. But yeah, Brian, has a pretty good feel for my taste. If he sends it to me, I'm going to check it out. Again, not sure how to pronounce this band's name though. Eclectic? It's E-A-L-L-I-C.
Huh.
Eclectic.
Eclectic is how I pronounce it. Eclectic.
I like that, Matt. Let's go with Eclectic. Anyway, it's album called Rake of the Astral Leviathan, which not bad as an album title.
Even the Astral Leviathan has to take care of its lawn before winter hits. Anyway, go ahead. The raking, sorry.
Hey, no, the problem is you were this close. You were so close, but you went with winter instead of fall. It would be like the snow shovel of the Astral Leviathan if it's winter time.
Well, you got to rake your lawn before the winter. I mulched all my leaves today, so I had lawn on the brain. I was doing it before the snow starts this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know it was bad. I've had too many snow bullets.
It was close. If you'd been like, I was out using the rake, today we're raking up leaves.
Womp, exactly. Womp.
You were close. You were close. But it's hey, we've been at it almost 3 hours.
I know it's bad.
We're going to miss sometimes a bit. Anyway, to get back to this one. It's newer release. I don't know where Brian picked up on the band, but they've got a real weird blend of styles, but weird in the kind of interesting way. For example, the first full track, number 2, Desert Flare. feels like almost just like a straight up very fast power metal tune. It's like, okay, so yeah, wasn't expecting this to be a power metal album from the look of it, but it's a pretty good track. But after that, it switches into a much more extreme style of metal. The vocals on most of the rest of the material are, more like, death metal delivery style. So you've got two different singing styles involved. The music's got, different influences mixed in. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, that's interesting. The first, I guess, at least half of the album has kind of a weird little kind of Lovecraftian story tying the tracks together. I think that trails off towards the end. I didn't get the sense that the story kept going after track 4 or 5. To further confuse matters, they close with a cover song and they choose "This Was My Life" by Megadeth. So it's like, okay, now you got a Megadeth thing going.
Bad choice.
I'm not saying it was a great choice, but it's like, so you're going with, an odd track by what most people think of as a thrash metal band, and you started off with a power metal song, and you've got, kind of aggressive but also relatively melodic death metal spliced through most of the tracks. So it's kind of an interesting mix. I'm glad Brian sent it. Brian, if you are watching this later on, where the hell were you when we were live? We needed you to hold this shit together. You weren't here, and you see what's happened. We've gone off, into, Tampax commercials and, love cobras. It's all your fault, Brian. You weren't here, man. You let us down. But thank you for the CD anyway, because it's kind of an interesting listen. I'll be interested to see what the band does next, if they try to pick a direction and stick to it more, or if they're going to keep experimenting with having these different things spliced together. Yeah, so if anybody's looking for something to check out, I am guessing these guys are on Bandcamp. If you want something interesting to check out sometime this weekend, Rake of the Astral Leviathan. Not a bad listen. It's not going to be album of the year material or anything like that, but definitely kind of a cool take. I hadn't really heard a band try to bring those different things together lately.
Okay.
All right, Marty, as we close in on midnight, what you got next?
Well, another band I was involved with early on. This is Blood of the Black Owl with a Feral Spirit, my favorite Black Owl, Blood of the Black Owl album.
It's a good one.
The debut album was very much from a place of Hellhammer and Celtic Frost, the riffs and Winter. Very heavy, plodding, catchy, kind of simplistic. It carried over onto this album a little bit for the foundation, but Chet really started layering waves of ritualistic ambient and like chanting and traditional instrumentation, some synth work. It all kind of congeals onto a very atmospheric and spiritual quest on this record. Some of my most favorite music he created was on this one, and he's put out some great shit over the years. He's still putting out good stuff.
Are you still in touch with that guy?
Yeah, we've talked here a little while ago. They're doing good. This is like, if you take the first Blood of the Black Owl album, and then he's got another project called Rur Hunter. It used to be Rur Hunter. Now it's Circle of the Raven Talons. He kind of combined the two projects, starting with this, and from there on out, it got a lot more ritualistic as they went along. But very good record. You got to be patient with this one. This isn't one that's going to jump off the grooves and inspire air guitar rocking and stuff. But it's a deep, introspective spin for sure. And I've got a big box of these copies of these. I have not got up on the distro yet. I'm going to try to do that this weekend. So if you need one of these, I've got a bunch of them. They're going to be up for sale soon. Good stuff.
Cool. I had not thought of that band in a long time.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, you only released his first, like 2 or 3 records, and then he decided to self-release after that or something?
No, I did first album, second album, third album, Banishing Ritual, and then the fourth album we co-released. It was the larger format. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I had too many beers. But yeah, after that he started on the fifth album he started self-releasing.
Right on. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about this White Ward band in the
People
comments.
High
I've been
about
hearing
this
about that record all year long, and I have not heard it yet. So sorry, everybody, but
yeah, I'm looking it up now. I've never heard of the band. It's a Ukrainian band.
They lose me at saxophone. I hear saxophone, and I'm just like, I don't know.
No, that's a deal breaker. Saxophones are not metal. They rank right about the same place dolphins do. Sorry, Rivers of Nile, but no.
It's like a dolphin playing a saxophone.
And every one of my
that's
videos
like the most non-metal thing
with
ever.
the saxophone, but whatever. It's cool, guys. Like, I'm not gonna take it personally or anything.
Yep, we just shit on Matt's Dungeon Synth project featuring saxophone and forklift sounds.
Sorry, Kenny G has 0 hit points and absolutely no. That is a +0 mood killing saxophone.
Well, I still believe. So anyway, moving forward here. Speaking of Dungeon Synth, this is a band that kind of mixed Dungeon Synth with black metal before that was really a thing. I mean, Burzum always did it, but this God Killer record, The Rebirth of the Middle Ages.
You know what? It's amazing to me. That album has been reissued and people are all over the place talking about it. When that came out, I got a promo of it and it was so like, meh.
Yeah, nobody
I
cared
gave it
about
away.
this.
I gave it away, and I'm like, God, I wish I didn't give it away because I wanted to see what all the hype was about. Was I just a jaded asshole back then? And
it's a good record, man. I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel or anything. I mean, it's one man black metal, medieval sounding stuff, but it's got some cool dungeon synth stuff. I mean, it's a fun record. I mean, this dungeon synth black metal mixture is a thing that has gotten kind of.
It's a thing.
It's been getting played out a little bit of late, but for a long time they weren't really mixed together. And this was one of the only bands I could think of outside of Burzum that was doing it back in the day. I mean, this came out in 1996. No one was doing black metal and dungeon synth back then. So. Good record, though. I mean, I've always enjoyed this one. Now, after this record, they turned to complete and utter
garbage. Yeah.
Complete garbage, like Wumpscut sounding nonsense.
Hey, I don't mind some Wumpscut.
Anybody that's into industrial owns at least one Wumpscut album.
Got 2 or 3.
You only need one. You need Embryo Dead, and that's all you need. Anything else, you're being ridiculous.
I got Menzer tracks too. And another one.
Okay, I'll forgive you. But Rebirth of the Middle Ages, if you've never heard this, definitely check it out. Good old school medieval black metal stuff from a dude out of Monaco.
Yeah. Lapse 9 Continuum called it. Yep.
Lapse knows what's up. So good stuff.
All right. Yeah, I regret getting rid of that because I've been curious. I'm not about to go and buy it again because it,
well, there is this thing called YouTube that
I don't use it. I don't use it to preview music because I want to be surprised. I want to be enchanted. I want the hairs on the back of my neck stand up like it did when I was 15. But it doesn't happen.
Elsa.
Right. All right. You're up, Alan.
I am. All right. Let's do another power metal release. Texas's Hellstar. Now, the first lesson here, boys and girls, is if you're going to release an album, this should not be the cover of your album.
They've had a long line of shitty. They've had a few hits, but I mean, there's a lot of bad choices going on in their album covers.
Yeah. They really got the shit end of the stick, even by Metal Blade album cover standards. They were definitely last in line when Brian Slaker was like handing out the postcards with Crayola scrawls on them. It's like, okay, here you go, Fate's Warning, and Omen. You guys get the big, Love Cobra, Omen. Good for you, Omen. James, Larry, guys, all I got left is this fucking thing. You're just gonna have to make do. It's like,
my niece made it in the kitchen sink. Yeah.
Is it like a forest picture through a weird filter? Is it a close up of a gravestone? Does it fucking matter? Because it's horrible.
Yeah.
But what's not horrible is the way the band blends, the faster styles of power speed metal with these really cool classically trained guitar lines. We brought up flamenco guitar before. Larry is a trained guitarist in flamenco and other styles. He doesn't do flamenco on here, don't get me wrong, but they have all these weird little neoclassical riffs and runs and scales and stuff within the guitar work that really made them stand out. They stood out a lot on the Texas scene because no other bands I can think of right away on the Texas scene were doing this style of metal. Most of them went for either something more straightforward or a little more aggressive. And this kind of power metal would become, it has a lot more to do with what you'd think of as European power metal when you get more into the 1990s. But Hellstar was doing it in Texas in the mid and late 1980s. They were kind of ahead of their time. And when you're ahead of your time, one of two things happens. You either become huge because you're the first one to stake your claim to that kind of sound, or you get completely overlooked forever. And then after, decades, people look back and it's like, oh, wow, you were so innovative. It's like, gee, thanks. Why didn't you buy any of my records when I was actually trying to make a living at this? Hellstar unfortunately fell into that second camp. They never really got the attention they deserved because the world wasn't quite ready for neoclassical power speed metal coming off, a Metal Blade label with a shitty album cover in the mid and late 80s. But they did it very, very, very well. But hey, they have stuck around. They still put out, pretty good albums. We've covered some of their more recent ones on the Album Club videos too. And if you haven't checked that out, go back and look it up. It's there. You can scroll through a few videos. It won't kill you. It's down there. And actually, yeah, surprisingly good stuff, even in recent years. Members have come and gone, but James and Larry are still there. They're obviously the core of this band. The new guitarist is really, really strong and fits in quite well with their style. So yeah, Hellstar, another power metal band that was kind of pioneering, bringing in some different elements and not just playing the exact same stuff that had been churned out by bands up to that point. And there, I'll stop and take a drink. Marty, you may take the helm.
All right, Matt. I see your 1996 Monaco Dungeon Synth black metal and raise you 1995 Austrian Dungeon
Fair
Synth
enough.
black
Fair
metal
Fair enough.
with Summoning's Minas Morgul, their second album, and this is a very long but very triumphant and amazing record.
I love that record. Yeah.
It's so good. They had a really great run of awesome music, and this one is where it started. The synth tones were maybe a little chintzy sounding, but you know what? When you listen to how it influenced Dungeon Synth, I don't know if this is really. Other people may have claimed that this band influenced Dungeon. I think it did. I really, especially this record. This is if you strip the metal away from the the guitars from this and the rough vocals, it's a Dungeon Synth record, straight up.
Sure.
The cheap
Agreed.
Casio tones, it just is. But what Summoning did differently with that is they really composed some very majestic, amazing world building music with this. Granted, it was based on the Tolkien sagas, but absolutely classic record, and they moved on from here to put out some amazing music. Stronghold's my favorite, but Dol Guldur, Let Mortal Heroes Sing Your Fame is another great one. Oathbound, there's a lot of great records.
Yeah.
That band just doesn't fuck up.
Everyone you just mentioned are like mandatory owns. I mean,
yeah, they just don't put out bad music. They just don't.
They don't.
Yeah, I still need to hear their last one, but
the last one for me was their first misstep. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just kind of long, and it didn't seem like their best material. It seemed like they're getting a little tired. It just seemed like they're getting a little burnt out on it. But I need to revisit. I listened to it twice and just wasn't in the mood apparently because it didn't impress.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was quite solid. But I think you have a fair point there, Marty. Their catalog has gotten long enough at this point where it is going to start to be hard to avoid it's just another good Summoning album. And once you have so many of those, it becomes hard to get really enthusiastic and excited the next time one comes out, because they do start to, each album's good, but yeah, you kind of know what you're getting before you even purchase it at this point.
Yeah. And Zach has a good, Caladan Brood. If you're not familiar, it's the guy from
Caladan Brood does it well too. Yep.
Visigoth and Gallo Braid. It's his summoning tribute band, and he did a great job with it because it's fantastically written music. And if you get the vinyl, it's got 2 summoning covers as a bonus. So definitely hunt down the vinyl if you're going to get that CD or get that release. Anyway,
yeah,
Matt,
I've never listened to Caladan Brood.
It's great summoning. It's really great summoning worship. He did a great job on it.
Yep, it's just summon, instead of Tolkien, they used the
Elder.
It's a different fantasy world. I forget which one, because that's the name. Caladan Brood is one of the factions in that particular world, and it's one of those where they have literally a 10 or 20,000 year history spread out over a ridiculous number of books, so that wherever you start in the story, I mean, eventually you're 10,000 years later trying to keep all these genealogies straight and stuff. Yeah, it's a crazy long series, but also a very highly acclaimed one. Someone in the chat will know what it is. I don't remember.
The Malazan series.
Malazan series. Charles? Yep. Yeah. Yep. The books of Malazan.
Oh, I was getting there. Sorry.
Yep. Thanks, Charles.
Have not read any of those, so I have no idea.
I haven't read them either. I've just at some point I sat down to figure out Caladan Brood is from something. Let's find out what it is, and spent maybe an hour or two on the Wikipedia page.
All right, Matt.
All right, so I'm gonna go to another low-hanging fruit record, but I've always liked Elements by Atheist. I know a lot of people hate this record, and I don't know why. I get it, because I won't. Okay, yeah, I get it, but I mean, this is a record that, I don't know, proggy death metal with calypso music mixed in there for a couple of tracks. I don't know. Very good record though, Atheist. And this is really my exit point with this band too. I know they broke up after this, and they've only got 1 or 2 other records after this one. I do
Jupiter
not like
Jupiter is the only other one, isn't it?
Oh, is it? It's only that one. Yeah, I do not like that record at all.
Not a prolific band. For as long as they've been together, they are not very prolific.
No, but Unquestionable Presence and Elements, Piece of Time. I mean, you can't go wrong with that first trilogy of records. And this one, I think they were already broken up before they got to the studio and were like, yeah, this is it. We're done. We hate each other. But it's just a real jazzy, funky kind of wacko album that they did, and I think it's totally solid. When I'm in the mood for listening to metal that goes to areas that I don't normally go, this is a great album to put on. And it's very earthy too. I mean, a lot of the songs are about the elements and everything, and this is an album you can listen to while walking through the woods. You're right at home with it. So big fan of this one.
I need to revisit that one sometime.
Me too.
That was a good example of what I mentioned earlier. When it was time for me, Atheist. I should check out Atheist. I've never heard Atheist. Which one should I start with? Ooh, that one's pretty. Let's listen to that one. What the fuck is this?
Jupiter? Did you start with Jupiter?
I started with Spheres and was very quickly confused and a little bit scared. That did not stay in the CD player very long. But yeah, so then again, a few years later, it's let's give this band another try. Piece of Time. That looks less threatening. Okay. Yeah, now let's slowly work forward from there. But yeah, I still need to go back and give Elements another go now that
it's good, and it's one of those kind of albums that I think works better if you put some distance between that and listening to the classic records, the first couple. If you try to listen to them all together, it's not going to make sense. But if you just give it a little room to breathe, I think it fits quite well.
Yeah,
especially when you're just if you want to go for a walk out in the woods, just get the hell away from society for an hour. Perfect album to listen to while you're out there in the woods. So
we've got a lot of calls for Cynic in the chat tonight. I did not pull any Cynic, but maybe somebody else did.
I got it next.
Okay, coming up soon then. What have I got next? I've got Hypocrisy. We've talked about Hypocrisy a few times lately. New album out this year, and we covered with the album club. Hypocrisy, the reason I included them is that they play both aggressive, more extreme death metal, but they also lean into the melodic side.
Yeah.
And they're always doing both. And you don't see a lot of bands do that. Most bands latch onto one or the other. And they're going either all brutal or all technical or all mellow. And Hypocrisy really insists on straddling that line almost every album. There's going to be some songs that are just real face grinders. And then there's going to be some songs that really play more into the melody, and then there's usually 2 or 3 songs that are even a little bit slower and a little more atmospheric to them. So I don't know if they necessarily blend the styles, because this is a case where you really can say, okay, those are the aggressive tracks. These are the tracks that are focusing more on the melodic elements, and these are the 2 slow tracks. But I can't think of another band right off the top of my head that does that. So I figured Hypocrisy, a little different way of mixing influences. They have the different styles. It's just, kind of song by song, they slightly change the way they do death metal, which makes them interesting. It keeps the albums from getting too stale. It was one of the things I really liked about the new Hypocrisy album. They paced it, and the track sequence was really good, that you'd have the aggressive songs spaced out, with some of the other songs, so that the album kept moving forward really nicely.
My favorite album of theirs is the one that they hate the most.
Chapter Catch 22.
No, I mean, Peter loves that record because he's a wackadoo, but it's the Fourth Dimension. They hate the Fourth Dimension, which boggles my mind. They say
that's a great album.
I love it, overall. But it's something, I think they said there's a documentary that they just put out on YouTube recently, and they said that the production killed that record, and that's like all they said about it, and then they moved on to talk about
that was a humongous transitional record, though. I mean, that really paved the ground for Abducted, which is a absolute ripper of an album. Still holds up to this day.
It is, but when I'm in the mood for Tegrin, I always go to Fourth Dimension. I don't know why. It's
a great record.
That's my jam. Is that one?
Very
the
moody.
Slower songs in particular on Fourth Dimension. Those are just so dark and heavy.
It's very doomy, that record.
Very doomy. Yeah, those are the stronger tracks on that album. That's an album that the slower stuff is the best stuff.
I still haven't listened to that new album they put out because I absolutely hated that Chemical Horror song or whatever that single was.
It's a good album. It's a good album. Mixed in with the rest of the album, it works. But it's kind of like when you take Closer or whatever out of the Downward Spiral, that I Want to Fuck You Like an Animal song by 9 Inch Nails. That song on its own, I'm like, God, the song is dumb. But when it's in the context of the album, it doesn't bother me. It's weird. I don't know. It's just an opinion, though. So,
yeah, I mean, I'll listen to it at some point, I'm sure. But
it was solid. I liked it.
Yeah. What about Pain? Are you guys a fan of his other band, Pain?
I have got a few Pain records, and they're fun. They're catchy pop. It's like pop metal type stuff. It's good.
I don't think I've ever checked them out.
I like the first 2, and that's about it. Out of that.
Yeah, I never strayed past the first 2 for sure.
Those are the only 2 I'm down with. So
yeah. What were you gonna say, Alan?
Oh,
I just said I don't think I've ever checked out Pain.
Very commercial.
Okay. Yeah, you don't need to.
you're not missing much.
It's not necessary. It is not necessary.
All right. Yeah, hydration.
I just did Hypocrisy. Is it back to me already?
Oh, is it? Shit, I'm confused. It's me.
I did Hypocrisy. So
you're right. So I've always liked this band. The debut Focus was a bit much to take at the time, but this album, when they came back together, Traced in Air, very good. I mean, to be generalizing it, this sounds like appeals to a fan base that's really into hot yoga, and wearing workout clothing that's either hemp based or made out of vegan materials. That's just the impression I get. But very interesting. There's jazz, there's prog mixed in with this. It's a very spiritual, enlightening style of record. And the cover looks like it's a DMT trip going on there. But I don't know. This band, after this album, they started to evolve into a world that I really don't want to follow them into sonically. It's getting a little too gentle, or I don't know what it is. But I mean, this album is still quite good. There's a lot of good songs on here. Rest in peace to the 2 members that are gone from this band. But Focus, I was going to pick Focus, but I think this one's got a little bit even more experimental than Focus. But for the time, Focus was a very experimental, kind of divisive, polarizing album. People either loved it or they hated it, and there was no real in between with that. But it was good to see them come back and start putting out some good quality music again. Hot yoga.
In the immortal words of Castillo from Chromium Dioxide, I listen to modern day Cynic for nothing.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
You did.
Yeah, all I can picture now, yes, is someone skeezy hanging out at Pilates course, be like, hey there, Mamacita, want to come back home with the love? Want to come home with the Love Cobra and check out the new Cynic album?
Do you smell like patchouli and BO at the same time? Traced in Air is for you. Sorry, that was mean. Anyway, Matt.
Just like soft, lightweight, feathery, new Cynic for hot moms and pants.
Try not to fart in a hot room.
I'm a big fan of Phlebotomized. I don't know if you guys have ever really listened to this band at all, but
I've checked them out. They're good, but I have not bought anything, but they're good. Is that a box set?
No, it's just I don't have the records in the sleeve.
What kind of animal are you? The records aren't in the sleeve. Are you an animal?
Well, they don't. It's one of those. No, it's one of those jackets where they don't fit very well in there. It's too tight, so I just leave it in the middle. But this is their second full-length album where they broke up after this, because this was pretty much the vision of one member of the band who is not in the band anymore. He left. So the band doesn't really consider this a real phlebotomized album, but I've always loved it just because it is bonkers all over the place.
That is a really bad cover. That's such a bad cover art. Color,
I don't know, man.
All of it.
Same way as Traced in Air looks like a DMT trip. I mean, this looks like it's a salvia trip almost. But
yeah.
And if
Are those
you look
dolphins on the cover?
Yes. Not dolphins, but some kind of fish. And if you look at the band logo, it's all just a bunch of weirdo people in different positions
having sex.
Isn't that cool? They're having sex condors. So great record though. This is a band that was like symphonic doomy death metal, and then they did this, which is just kind of a really bombastic hard rock record with a little bit of metal in there, but it's just all over the place. A lot of people don't like this record, but I enjoy it quite a bit. So Phlebotomized, good stuff though.
Right on.
Very proggy kind of record.
All right, sir. We're going to do. It's late, so we're going to assume those are fish and give you a pass on that. But if you brought in some goddamn dolphin metal onto this show, we're going to have words in the dugout later.
No, they're not dolphins. They're not dolphins. Look, put it back up. What dolphin? There's no dolphin. There's a baby.
I heard dolphins and my blood boiled. So
there's Dr. Manhattan as a baby, but
is that one? There's a guitar fish.
Guitar fish, but there's no dolphins.
That's like a manta ray or something back there. That's not even a mammal. That's okay. We're cool.
So
we're cool.
Yeah, cut me some slack, gentlemen. Come on.
Hey, it's good. It's good.
We're over the 3 hour. We're over the 3 hour mark here. I mean, we gotta keep it going. So
getting late, getting edgy. I heard the word dolphin. Blood pressure went up. It's all good though. Calm blue ocean with no dolphins in it.
So it says this should be called the bad cover art episode. Well, we kept catching Alan, getting his electrolytes for the evening on screen. It's great.
You're doing like behind the scenes footage now.
Sleeving on camera. I'm doing it.
You keep doing the behind the scenes stuff.
I did it earlier, and I broke my own rules, and I feel like a shithead for it. But anyway. What you got, Alan?
People hate that. Why do people freak out over that? I've never
Because
understood.
people take 3 minutes to do it. They're like, oh, they're struggling with it. Just put it down and do it later. Anyway, go ahead, Alan.
Professionalism, first rule of live streaming. All right, let's get some better cover art up here. Then, classic band. This is another one that can be hard to figure out where you want to put them on the shelf, and also hard to pronounce. Sirathungal or Kirathungal, if you're going to use the correct Tolkien pronunciation. Really cool band. They always had their own little niche. While they're recognized, as a big part of 80s heavy metal, they never quite fit in with any other bands either. They go way back into the 70s, so they always had, this kind of weird retro vibe, never quite crawling out, of the former decade. They've got, a very loud kind of, early power metal structure, but there's these 70s trappings that hang around, especially on Frost and Fire. You've got, this, insane wailing banshee of a vocalist over the top of it. And the whole thing, just has this real apocalyptic vibe about it, which brings in, this, strong doomy downer element too. I love how it all worked out. It came together in this very, very unique blend. Not a lot of bands ever sounded a whole lot like Kirathungal, and I don't think they could have. You just couldn't get the right people in place to make it all work again. Always had fierce songs, always had, fierce cover art, long time relationship with Michael Whalen, got to use, a lot of the Elric paintings and stuff. Crazy, great band with a strange sound. One thing I liked about them too, the few little interview clips I've seen here and there, especially in more recent years, they always seem pretty down to earth. They're enjoying stuff. One interview clip in particular, asked the band, kind of this question, like, where do you put your music? How do you describe, Kirathungal's music? It seems so strange and different. And I forget which band member answered, but they just kind of, were chuckled and laughed. The funny, and they're just like, what the funny thing is about all their songs that people just don't get? We're all a bunch of California hippies, and they're all protest songs. That's all it is. We're just doing a bunch of protest songs about, the end of the world and, everybody fucking up the environment and nuclear war and all this shit. We just do it, through this weird fantasy lens. And that's all it is. We're a protest band. And when you stop and think about it, it's like, that actually is true. But it comes across as just, really over the top, fantasy power doom metal. Power doom. Can we do power doom for this? I'm going to do power doom for this.
You're going to go with that instead of epic, huh?
Epic power doom. Maybe some of their stuff is more epic than others. But yeah, no, you could get the epic adjective in there. Again, I'm still leery of using epic without any other modifier.
You need to buy 2 more copies of that to put it on one on the epic shelf, one on the doom, and one on the power shelf. Then you could just have all your bases covered.
I've already got 3 copies, so
well, perfect. There you go.
Kirathungal I always keep on the doom shelf, which may seem a little strange, but that's where I put it. The just overall heaviness and the atmosphere of that. I want to hear Kirathungal when I'm in the mood for something kind of doomy, not when I'm in the mood for something that's going to be more likely to be found on the power metal shelf. So I know where they go, and that's where.
Right.
God, you're giving me a headache, Alan.
All right, let's go.
What have you got on the shelf next, Marty?
This is I don't own the album I wanted to pull from this band, but Nagura Bunget, This is
Huh.
I can't pronounce it, but the album I wanted to pull was Ohm. I mean, they take Hungarian folk and mix it in with black metal. Very powerful, emotive, expansive black metal. Ohm is a fantastic record. This is good too. I've only got their first two on CD, but Ohm is a definite excellent album, and they put out a bunch of stuff after that as well. But I figured, they were a black metal band that dug into the folk area and did some very cool memorable things with it. So I wanted to mention them for sure. Matt's back.
How many more you guys got?
I've got 3 more.
3 more.
All right. Well, I've still got like 30 pulled.
Holy shit.
So I'm going to show
Matt came loaded for bear, people. Loaded for bear.
I'm the Dark Path, man. What did you guys expect? Bands that blend styles? Of course, that's like all I own. So I'm just going to throw out 4 real quick ones just because they go together in a way, just because I've done deep dives on all of these bands. So let me just throw them all out. So Passage by Samael. This is again a departure point where this band had just gone full industrial metal, not really even black metal anymore. It's one of the coldest, most sterile sounding records I've ever heard. It's always been one of my favorites by Samael. I think this record is fantastic still to this day. Tiamat, Wild Honey.
I was going to pull that record too, but I figured you probably would.
Yeah, just I don't know, Pink Floyd psychedelic meets whatever weirdness Johann Edlund had in his cocaine-fueled brain when he wrote this ridiculous record. But this is a trippy, fantastic record. I've always loved this one. Mixes a lot of styles here. Fantastic stuff.
Awesome cover artwork too. Isn't that a Necrolord cover?
I don't know if it's Necrolord. I'd have to take it apart to see.
Don't worry. It looks kind of
Somebody in the comments help us out there. So
Christian Wallen.
Paradise Lost 1 second.
This
is a band that famously started as one of the better Death Doom bands out of the Peaceville 3, went in kind of a Metallica-ish direction, and then went to whatever you would call this, dark rock, synth pop, dark rock, dark rock, whatever.
Don't they still sound like Depeche Mode?
No. No, they don't. No, they don't. Actually, they sound like blah, blah, blah. But last one, just as my last quick blast, had to throw some Psy out here. I mean,
I've been avoiding it because I knew you would have it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a band that mixes classical 80s metal with black metal with weirdo Japanese casino pachinko music and everything in between. This is one of my favorite bands of all time. This is one of my favorite records by them. The album they came out with this year is probably their most accessible album, and it's very doomy. It's very fantastic. If you've ever been on the fence about Psy, I highly recommend you check out the new album Shiki, because it's probably the easiest one to digest. So
I still need to get it.
Those are 4 bands that are some of my favorite bands of all time. They have been since I was in high school. I have like 2-hour videos each devoted to all 4 of these bands. If you actually want to see this for that long, go to the Dark Path and watch some of my old deep dive videos. They're all very mediocre, but these records.
That is not true. That is not true. You do a really
all
great
of
job.
These records are fantastic. So, and I think they fit the bill pretty well for like genre blending styles. I mean, all of these bands do that, and they have since day one. So,
all right, Alan.
Yeah, I'm still kind of surprised one of my local stores hasn't gotten that new Psy on the shelf yet. That would be right up their alley, and it hasn't happened. But
Amazon, son, go to Amazon. Give Jeff Bezos $12, and then you will have the new Psy album.
And he can send his
Yeah.
rich ass into space again, sort of pseudo space.
Yeah, he can eat like another live monkey for dessert because he needs that.
Live monkey.
I am willing
What
to
the hell are
wait
you
a bit.
talking about? Live monkey.
He's rich; he can get whatever he wants. He doesn't have mundane things for supper. He
Eats
orders-
dolphin.
He eats
He-
weird exotic animals for dessert because he can, because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I am willing to be patient and wait and support my local record store when they finally get off their ass and order a copy of.
Why don't you just special
Shiki.
order it? Don't they do special orders for nerds like us?
Yes.
There you go.
Are you proud now? Do you feel good about what you've done, Matt? Are you happy with yourself? Do you feel like a big man?
I mean, did I just mansplain how to get what you want?
Well, actually, mhm.
No, it just remind me I haven't special ordered anything from them in a while.
Well,
Last time I did, it turned out to be real. I unknowingly ordered some sketch stuff, so I'm a little.
well,
gun
that
shy
happens.
since
That
then.
happens to everybody every once in a while.
Oh, it's
It
yeah,
does.
exactly.
It was
It
so
happens.
good, and he's
It
such a jerk. Damn it.
But that new Psy album, it's good. It is well worth however long you have to wait for it and whatever you have to pay to get it. Highly recommended. One of my top albums of the year. So
Yeah, it's one of the ones I'm picking up before the year wraps up because I want to check it out. Okay.
All right, you're up.
All right. We've got 3 left. So the first of those we'll do Sabotage. Sabotage went from being a kick-ass American heavy metal band for most of the 80s to kind of getting into the rock opera business right around this point with Gutter Ballet. And of course, they would move more and more in this direction over subsequent albums. But, this one has a good chunk of both. There are still songs that have the older style, but yeah, they're definitely trying something new and mixing it in here on some of the tracks. Gutter Ballet, When the Crowds Are Gone, Summer's Rain. It works really good. I can see this being a real head scratcher at the time.
It's a good
I
album.
don't know. I don't know how it was received. It was a little, before my time. But for folks, yeah, if they were really into just Hall of the Mountain King and earlier stuff, this one may not have sat so well coming out of the gate back around 1988 or so when this was released. But personally, I've always thought they did an excellent job. This was a case of a band changing direction and picking up a very different style and excelling at it just like they had excelled at their previous style. So yeah, I like both eras of Sabotage just fine. The last couple of albums, now they did run out of steam. They just they did they did at least 2 too many Paul O'Neill records. But sometimes you go to the well just once or twice too often. Happens to lots of long running bands. But yeah, Sabotage found something that worked here pretty neat. And in a way, it probably helped them survive the 90s. Let's face it, a lot of those 80s metal bands did not transition into the 90s successfully, but Sabotage did, and they still had a good run of it for most of that decade. So finding something different to incorporate into their music helped them along until, of course, Christmas time came along, and, well, the rest of that was history.
All right. I can't believe Matt didn't pull this, but I got his back. We got Dotime's Guard 666 International.
Folks were asking for this earlier.
it was next. It was next, you bastard. It's literally the next one I was going to show.
This band started off on Chronic Till Kunga, which is my favorite Dotime's Guard album, as a straight up Norwegian black metal band. But on that record, they were different from the rest. They had the feel, the spirit, just different vocals, more of a folky backbone to them without being overly folky. But as they went on, their music, Monumental Possession, and then Satanic Art, their shit started to get more crazy, acidic sounding black metal before they fell off into this very much industrial, crazy, avant-garde, off the wall. they started going with the kabuki makeup and strange band photos. But this is like a who's who. Vic Noctic's in it, and I think Apollyon's in this band. I don't know, I'm just looking at the picture here. I don't remember exactly who's in. It's too dark in here for me to read it, but I hated this when it came out. Man, I hated it, but I've circled the wagon back around to it and enjoy it. I even like the Supervillain Outcast, which a lot of people tend to hate that record. I like that record as well. There's some really good stuff, electronic stuff on it. But I have not heard their latest, so I'm deficient in that department. But
oh, it's so good, dude.
Really?
Umbra Omega. It's. I mean, this is my favorite from them, but Umbra Omega is my second favorite Avant-garde.
Really? I need to get it. I need to get it.
It is so good. It is so good.
But yep, these guys are doing some really cool. They're pushing the boundaries of metal by injecting tons of crazy synth. Look at there. If there was an 8-track and a set of thongs, he would have bought those too.
Yep. So yeah, you're surprised I didn't pull this out. Well, I pulled it out 3 times, son. Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah. All right. You're next.
All right. Well, I still have a bunch of records here.
Go for it. I've got 2 more.
You got 2 more? All right. I'm going to do another blast then. How about that?
Blast through it. Yep.
Go for it.
Oof, man.
All right. We're gonna start with Fractal Possession by Abigor.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, this is where Abigor, really weird album for Abigor. I mean, they never really did this industrial black metal thing really, but this album they did, and I put this album right up there with 666 International. I think if you like that one, you would like this one. Great record. Time Wave Zero, Blood Incantation. I know a lot of people didn't get it. A lot of people didn't like it. You just needed to go out to the desert, eat 7 grams of mushrooms. God says, what's up? This album's fantastic.
I only ate 5 grams. That's how it got fucked up. Damn.
That's right.
It's a great record if you're in. You don't have to be tripping to enjoy that record, but it's definitely one where it builds and builds and builds. If you're busy doing something else and that's just on in the background, you're gonna miss all the nuance that's happening on that record. It's a record you really have to pay attention to, and I think most death metal kids didn't do that with that record. Having said all of that, still on the mushroom trip, Hallucinogen by Blut aus Nord. You could say this band mixes it up all the time too, but they really have like 4 styles that they kind of bounce around with between all of their albums. It's either like really epic stuff like this, or it's really like nightmare fuel, like Work Which Transforms God, or it's pure evil black metal like Ultima Thule, or it's really trippy stuff like Cosmosophy. I said that wrong probably, but great bands. They are all over the map. I love Blut aus Nord.
I was hoping one of the styles was hot pants yoga, but I guess it's not to be.
You know, we mentioned this asshole earlier, you know, dungeon synth, black metal. What, I mean, come on, it's Burzum. What more to say about that? And then I know Marty Burzum. Let's find out. And I know you hate this band, but I love Genghis Tron. This is a band
I don't hate the band. I've just never wanted to check them out because of their name.
Oh, I thought you told me you didn't like them, but
no, I've never cared.
I've never checked them out. I've heard the name. I just don't know anything about them.
It's a band that mixes like EDM, like grindcore, like digi grindcore with, you know, regular grindcore stuff. Like they do grindcore with electronics basically. And this album right here, Dead Mountain Mouth, is probably their best record in my opinion. So highly recommended. And that is my quick blast.
All right.
Cool stuff.
Alan.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, let's do this one next. A band we've talked about from time to time.
Oh my God.
Fits here nicely. Eternus. Nobody really quite sounded like Eternus back in these early recordings. They had black metal trappings, but doom metal oppressiveness, but all kind of really wrapped up, in this death metal package. And
So good.
Yeah, kind of, some of the tracks, you got, have, a little bit of an epic flair. There's longer tracks, they kind of, build, they flow very nicely. You can really just kind of, let the track carry you for a long time. But again, also, very dark and heavy when they want to storm it up a bit. They're very good at that as well. Any of the early Eternus stuff before and see, that's funny because they lost that blend of things after a few albums. And when they lost that, they became a pretty generic, aggressive death metal band. It's just like, and they weren't bad at that style.
They've circled back around though. Heathen is a really good album. It's good.
I still have not got around to checking that out. I need to put it on the list. You know what? Here, I came prepared. I just forgot I was prepared. I've got a new list. I actually got a book so that we can start to keep the list straight. So I don't have to keep writing things like on Post-it notes and stuff. This will be our first entry. Eternus. Heathen.
Oh, a little elf might buy you that for here soon, so don't go too crazy. Put it on your list, but don't go crazy.
I'll put it on YouTube. I am man enough to accept YouTube as my gateway portal sometimes. But right here, in all seriousness, folks like in the chat are always recommending lots of good stuff, and I don't always remember it later. And trying to scan through 4 hours of the chat to remember what album Evan or Jack recommended just ain't going to happen. But I am going to start trying to keep track of it a little bit better. I've been checking out some things folks recommended in recent lists and really digging some of it. So I want to keep tabs on who's recommending what so I can dig into them and report back from time to time. So we've got Eternus' Heathen is the first thing. This is an old accounting book, so there's even little things so I can add emojis to say how much I like it. Because apparently I just turned into a 13-year-old girl.
You need some heart stickers that are scratch and sniff.
My Little Pony stickers right here. This one gets 3 unicorn hearts.
3 glory hammer unicorns. All right.
I don't like where that's going. So. But I have to pass it over to you anyway. Anyway, Eternus. Yeah, really cool blend of different sounds on their early days. All right, Marty, take us somewhere, but please not into the land of glory hammer unicorns.
Another one I'm surprised no one showed tonight. Asphira Him Sophina by Arcturus.
I was
when Matt
close.
mentioned the Bizarro Carnival thing earlier, I thought for sure Arcturus was coming out next.
I thought it was too obvious, so I didn't pick it. But
this band is basically the main guy in this band is Sverd. He's a keyboard player. He's been on Satyricon Records. He's done the rounds in the Norwegian scene, but this is kind of his deal. Hellhammer on drums. On this album, it's got Garm from Ulver singing on it. I can't remember who the guitar player is on here. They certainly got a lot more prog as they went forward, but this album is, for the time it came out, a very kind of groundbreaking record. They had kind of a weird prog vibe going on, between the mix of the keyboards and the weird time signatures and the interesting guitar lines. What you got here? Oh yeah, right on. And Garms was singing harshly on this. Yeah, that's where they started to get really crazy. I'm just gonna have Matt take us out here with the Shamir's is good. That's really good. Arcturian's really good. But yep, solid band that kind of started bridging the gap between Norwegian black metal and prog influences. So kind of a thinking man's black metal band, perhaps you could say. And that's not too far off the mark for sure. And Matt is back with his next quick blast of stuff.
You guys have one more each, right?
Yep.
Correct.
All right. I've got
I'm going to be real surprised if Marty doesn't pick. I think I know what Marty's got for his last one. I'll be real surprised if I'm wrong.
You're probably going to be wrong because this is a last minute pick. Anyway,
I've got 5. I've got 5 that will blow through them. Was surprised no one brought up Beharit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So this is a band that
Beharit too. Didn't think of
yeah,
it.
like
I can't believe you got that on vinyl.
Yeah, I got it on vinyl.
I can't believe that was a vinyl worthy purchase.
I got the other one on vinyl too. Yeah, like early war metal, I guess you would call it, and then this weird ritualistic Casio keyboard music.
Yep,
I dig it.
I mean, it's good. I like it, but I don't need it on vinyl, I guess. But cool.
Well, it's because the CDs weren't repressed, so when they were repressed, I got it on vinyl. So.
Right.
This is one you turned me on to a long time ago, Marty. This Exploited record, Death Before Dishonor.
Yep.
Love this record. It's like
I like it too. It's a good record.
Hardcore punk thrash, basically. Crossover, pure crossover. And we didn't really show a lot of crossover on this episode. I'm very surprised. But I
love that cover artwork too. It's very cool cover artwork.
It's so good. And funny thing about this is my wife, she's really big into like Delta blues and stuff like that, but she grew up listening to a lot of punk. And I was like, hey, I've got a few punk records. Let me throw a couple of them on for you. And I put this one on for her, and she's like, that's metal. What are you doing? And like to my ears, it sounds like a
thrashy record. It's them going thrash.
Yeah. To my ears, it sounds like punk, but to her, it was pure metal. So good stuff. And to match with all this Morbid Angel stuff around my room, I pulled out Covenant specifically for the song Angel of Disease that's on this record, because it doesn't sound anything at all like anything else on this record. It's kind of a cheat, but that one song, it's kind of a punk song almost, and I thought that was an interesting choice to put on this record, so wanted to throw that out. Little Liebach, one of the creepiest album covers of all time.
My favorite by them is Nova Acropola. That is a nightmarish record.
It's a great record. That's a great record. But Liebach, I mean, they're not really a metal band, but they've got a lot of heavy stuff out there. They do arguably have a couple of albums that could be considered metal or industrial metal. But this record specifically, they were the first band invited to North Korea to play. And this is just them playing the Sound of Music soundtrack in Liebach style. And this is what they played to the people of North Korea when they went there. So very strange. And they do a lot of different weird soundtrack covers and other weird industrial stuff all over the map, this band. Fucking strange. And then I'm going to leave you guys with some sweater metal, because I know it is cold in Michigan and it's time for you to put on your sweaters and enjoy some Ishan. And we got a little Arctis here. And this solo Ishan stuff, I hated it for years and years and years and years. And it wasn't until this album where Ishan's sweater, saxophone, loving, proggy, pseudo black metal, whatever you want to call his stuff, it never clicked with me until this record. And then once this record clicked with me, all of his solo stuff just kind of fell in line. And I actually really
pretentious, man. It's unintentionally pretentious.
Well, it's pretentious as hell, but have you ever seen pictures of this guy since he was like 14 years old? He's been pretentious since he was born. I mean,
true. Yep.
He only wears the brand name sweaters.
Yeah. I mean, call a spade here, man. But Ishan, this is ultimate sweater metal for these cold months, and it is weird stuff. It goes all over the place. There's saxophone, there's prog, there's metal, all sorts of fun stuff on this record. So
I totally want a sweater with that whimsical artwork on it. That'd be crocheted in with it. It'd be pretty sweet.
I know a guy who makes shirts for a living. I might be able to hook that up for you.
That'd be fucking awesome. Yeah.
But does he make sweaters for a living?
I don't make sweaters for a living.
You gotta broaden your equipment every once in a while, right?
Right.
All right. That's all I got. That was everything.
Wow, we blew through them. Awesome. Alan, you're
That
up.
was it.
All right, I want to wrap up with something new from this year. I've mentioned it once or twice. Kellen did a video on this earlier in the year, and I checked it out because I'm quickly learned to pay attention when Kellen recommends things. It's a band called Sadistic Ritual.
I need it. I keep been meaning to check that out. I keep forgetting.
And this is very much the kind of thing I would never even have looked at this on the record shelf. It would never have caught my eye if I hadn't seen Kellen's video about it. Kellen's over on the Killing for Company channel. If y'all are not familiar with it, go check that one out. He also does the album club reviews with Marty and Jim on Wednesday nights, which are tons of fun.
Yep.
Anyway, what is Sadistic Ritual doing in terms of blending styles? In a sense, this has a thrash structure to it, but they're using more of a blackened delivery for vocals, but not the way a lot of the blackened thrash. There's a wave of blackened thrash stuff that's very popular, but it's in more the midnight tradition of just bullet belts and hail Satan and ride car, fire, flames, devil, bullet belt, beer, Satan. And I mean this in the fun way. I like some of that stuff quite a bit. It's fun. It's just kind of one dimensional, but sometimes that's what you're in the mood for. But that's not at all what they're doing here. They're using those kind of very hoarse, raspy, blackish vocals. They're not putting it over traditional thrash. This would not pass as Bay Area thrash or anything. But in terms of the pacing, some of the riffing styles and stuff, it feels like it has more of a thrash metal background to it. Has really good guitar work out front in the solos and stuff too. So again, doesn't quite sound like anything else going on. And that was why Kellen had highlighted it. He's like, here's a band that's doing something kind of interesting and unique, and it's going to be interesting to see if that pushes them forward again. If you're first in line, sometimes you get elevated, and sometimes you get kind of just stampeded and trampled into the ground. So he was kind of posing the question, what's going to happen with this band? I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of cool to hear them doing something a little bit different. I'm going to call it blackened thrash, but it's definitely not your Death Hammer Bewitcher type of blackened thrash. It's a different blend of those elements, and that's what makes it pretty cool. And
I've seen that. I've seen that band live more times than I can count, because when I lived in Atlanta, they were one of the bigger local bands in Atlanta, and it's been fun watching them grow ever since I moved out of Atlanta. They've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, so that's pretty cool. But I remember seeing those guys at like little bars with like 20 people. They're all like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. It's good stuff though. Yeah, so you should listen to some of their earlier stuff. Their earlier stuff is cut much more from the creator cloth than what they're doing on that new record. But
okay,
it's all good stuff.
Yeah, it's one I will eventually work my way backwards through some stuff as I find it here and there.
Yeah, they put an album out on Boris Records, which is out of Atlanta, but I think they've got one out on Unspeakable Acts as well. So
okay,
still easy to find all their stuff.
Sweet.
I'll be keeping an eye out for them. All right, Marty, you've got one left. If you don't pick the one I'm thinking, then I may have to do a quick
you can circle back around to it, because this is not going to be what you think.
All right.
Matt mentioned him earlier on this evening. I don't know how to say this exactly. I always called them Arborium, but it might be Arborium. I don't know. But the first two albums,
I pronounce it as Aberum, but I've been told that's wrong too.
I always thought it was a Borum. So
yeah,
we're all on a different page here.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, the debut album is Kali Yuga Bazaar. The follow-up is Fire Walk With Us, and the next one was called With No Human Intervention, which I do not own other than on CDR. This is basically a side project of Attila and another guy. This early stuff, this first two albums was the foundation was very black metal with some electronics, but as they went on, with No Human Intervention and forward, they kind of shedded some of the black metal guitar stuff and embraced more of a synth. They got a lot more crazy synth style. Of course, Attila from Mayhem and Tormentor and Drowning Pool, his vocals are, of course, excellent, off the chain, unique in his own way, and coming from a Nivik ogre from Skinny Puppy influence for sure. I haven't spun these albums in a long time, and I thought I had with No Human Intervention. That's the one I wanted to pull, but I don't have it, so I decided to pull these two instead. Matt mentioned them. Did you do a dive on these at some point?
Yeah, I just did a deep dive on them that I posted this week. So
you
on
did?
Tuesday, I posted
Oh
a
shit!
deep dive on them.
I missed it. I missed it. I'll have to watch it this weekend. Right on.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah. So to correct a couple of things that you said there, Marty,
It's been a while since I spun them.
Yeah, they weren't a side project of Attila. They were an actual band. Attila was only on 2 or 3 of the songs on Kali Yuga Bazaar.
Really?
He took over. Yeah, it's a different main vocalist on that one, but
and it's
Attila
actually a full band.
Yeah, but Attila is on it. He's just like a guest vocalist, studio musician, guest performer, whatever you want to call him.
He's in the lineup here on the second
and
one.
on that one, Fire Walk With Us, that's his first album where he took over all of the vocal duties.
Yep.
And then after that, he did the vocals on With No Human Intervention, but that's when Mayhem came knocking on his door again. So he left Arboreum, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah,
and then they got the vocalist from Mysticum to do the next record. And then everything went downhill after that record, pretty much. So
okay.
Watch my deep dive. It's a good one.
I'm going to.
Not that many people have watched it yet, but it's out there for your viewing pleasure.
It'll be this weekend. It's been a busy week.
Yep.
So, Alan, which one did I not show?
Okay, I thought for sure this would be on your list tonight. Nobody talked about Manila Road.
Oh, yeah, nobody.
No, yep, and they definitely mixed different styles over time. Early on they had still a lot of 70s hard rock tendencies. Early mid 80s they for a couple of albums there had a very great mixture of epic and doom vibes going on. As the 80s went on, they got more and more thrash mixed into their sound.
Yep.
When they came back around later on, they kind of embraced a little bit more of sort of the epic traditional sounds overall. But yeah, Manila Road, and then they even had some albums with the wonky keyboards in the background that sounded absolutely horrible for me, at least.
Well, if you want more wonky keyboards, his side project Hellwell.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't. I tried.
I love both
tried
of
Hellwell
those records. They're both really good.
You
need to revisit. Write them in your book.
I got the damn book. I want to write something in it. We'll give Hellwell another chance. I have a feeling at the time I checked it out, I just wasn't in the mood for a keyboard heavy Manila Road.
It sounds like Manila Road with John Lord playing on it. That's what it sounds like.
I don't know if that's a good thing yet or not. I like John Lord and I like Manila Road, but I'm not sure those are two things that need to dwell in the same space.
I enjoyed it.
It's in the book, so I won't forget it. So at some point, it will be it will be crossed off the list once, and then I shall report back.
Right on.
And I can put a little dolphin sticker next to it. As somebody in the chat
Scratch
recommended.
and sniff. Smells like tuna. All right.
We are not touching that.
Well, that's it. How long we go? Almost 4 hours. 4 hours of genre bending metal bands and some other stuff. And it was a lot of fun. Matt, as always, we love having you, man. It's great having you.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking records with you fine, beautiful men.
As we do you as well, for sure. As we do you.
Absolutely.
And
yes, we've got the Testament discography is reserved for you now. We shall circle back to that one before ere long.
Okay.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Deal.
Folks, there's going to be some new shirts coming real soon. I have a feeling in a week or so. So get ready for a fun new design from Justin Bowling from Vestovan's Blood Box. Maybe we need to get Justin on the show one of these times too.
I was under the impression there was a scheduling issue where he couldn't, but schedules change, and maybe I'm just flat out wrong, and we failed to check in with them on that.
I think we failed. We failed in that department, but
Well,
Good
crap,
job,
now I'm
guys.
sad.
You could have had Vestaban on tonight, but
nope. We're gonna wait until the shirt's done. And also, Matt, again, thank you, and everybody, please go check out the Dark Path. He's doing the Lord's work, and we need to have him have more subscribers.
Go check out that Aborum deep dive he just did. Matt's, and I'm already said it before, but Matt, your deep dives are always very interesting, even if they're bands I'm not familiar with or maybe not that into. There's still just lots of good information there, and I learn a lot listening to them. So
I appreciate it. You know, I know I complain about them not getting as many views as other things, but you know, those who like them really enjoy them, so it doesn't bother me. I just, you know, like to bitch about things.
No, I get it.
Time to time, but
it's all good.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of new people in the chat tonight. Hopefully you're subscribed. Keep coming back and checking us out. We're typically twice a week. Wednesday we'll be back around on the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. Jim selected Killing Technology by Voivod, so we're going to be doing a little 1-hour dive on that classic slab of sci-fi thrash for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun because Kellen does not like that band, so it's going to be interesting to see if we can back him into a corner and see how he strikes out against us. But Let's Talk Metal, please go check out his channel as well. He's always doing great stuff. Every Tuesday he updates as well. You guys have anything to add before we pull the plug on this?
Matt gets 2 tuna-scented dolphin stickers for his deep dive series.
Very nice. Very nice.
I'll take it.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend and get ready for winter because she's coming in hot.
Go snowblower. Break out the snowblower of the Astral Leviathan. You're going to need it.
Oh, and one last thing. All week I've been listening to the first 4 Rat records. Go put yourself in a good mood and listen to some Rat tonight, everybody. It's so much